looking for now, Frankenstein?
I know I'd go from rags to riches.
Why, a 4-year-old child could understand this report. Run out and find me a 4-year-old child. I can't make head or tail out of it. Faravelli, you've got the brain of a 4-year-old boy, and I bet he was glad to get rid of it.
My fate is up to you.
Now I'd be shitting my pants if I was you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Your List Sucks Top 100. Thanks for joining us again live on Twitch or on the replay on YouTube. Don't watch the replay. Watch live. It's more fun. I don't understand how Twitch works either. I get it, but we'll figure it out together. Jake Crookshake, last week's winner.
That's not how I asked to be introduced on your show, actually.
Well, I'm trying to keep the goodwill going for as long as we can, Jake. So let's let that play out. How you feel about this week's list?
I think I'm gonna win. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I saw one of your reactions, so I'm ready. Like I'm bulletproof. Like you're.
That's the way that's the right attitude to have. Scott Harvey, photo finish last week, almost made the #1 spot. Do you think you're gonna get over the hump today?
I don't. However, I did win the popular vote last week, it seems, which, it means nothing because we're in America, but, it means something in my heart. So I'm happy about that. But no, I think this is going to be kind of the same situation as last week where it's mostly good, but I have one or two movies that kind of torpedo me. Probably not to last place, but I'll just kind of be in the middle if I had to guess.
All right. Adelaide Spence, you did not come in last place last week. You keep that trend going up this week?
Yeah, fuck if I know. I lose both the critic vote and the popular vote. Call me, what'd I be? I am the
George McGovern.
Oh no, I was gonna say the joke will come to me eventually. I'm drunk, but not really, just metaphorically.
All right, and Rue, you were bringing up the rear last week. Is that going to continue? You going to beat Spence at least this time around? You think?
I feel like I have a much better shot this week. It's again, I told you my back half is real weird, and even like week to week, the back half is like up and down. I think this is one of the ups. What might get me is some placements and some questionable placements, but I'm okay with it. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, we'll see what happens. Last week was rough, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. Nowhere to go but up. So we're going to keep with standard Your List Sucks rules. We kept it under 2 hours last week. We're going to try and do that again. So the shut up rule is still in effect. And we lost Jake.
Well, he shut up.
We already shut up Jake, apparently.
So hopefully he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, Scott, why don't we start with your 90 through 88?
Okay, I hope he doesn't have a yikes for any of them, but I actually am expecting some yikes here. But number 90 is my favorite Tony Scott film, Crimson Tide. My 89 is Sing Street.
Yikes.
And my 88 is About Time.
Yikes. Both of those for a later episode.
It's got to be a yikes, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so you can talk about Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide is my
Jake,
number 90.
Jake, you didn't yikes Crimson Tide, did you?
No, none of these.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this is my favorite Tony Scott film, like I said. It's a little bit asynchronous for Tony Scott because it's billed as an action movie, but it's more of like a suspense movie. I mean, it's set all in this one setting, the submarine. It's probably the best submarine movie ever. And it feels like a Hitchcock movie at times because it's more about like, again, the suspense of like their decision making, the decisions that they have to make about, what is the best course of action. And obviously the stakes are incredibly high with nuclear warfare and, possible launching of nuclear weapons at stake. And, just the battle of wits that goes on between Denzel Washington as sort of the young hotshot soldier and Gene Hackman as the old captain more grizzled veteran, and they're sort of differing opinions of what the best course of action is. And I think Kirk has made this point before, actually, maybe even in reference to this movie, but this is a good movie in the sense that it doesn't like go out of its way to say, oh, one guy is in the right, one guy is in the wrong. It's just kind of, just showing their different approaches, but like it's an even-handed portrayal of both of them and their struggle. And, if you're going to have this movie that is heavily based around the conflict between these two guys, it helps to have two of the greatest actors probably of all time as the two guys. And that's what they have with Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington. They're, complementary styles work so well in this movie. And Quentin Tarantino like punched up some of the dialogue for this movie, and it shows because there's actually some really sharp dialogue in some sequences. I mean, you can definitely tell the scenes that he punched it up. But this movie is really entertaining. As a Tennessean and a diehard Tennessee fan, it takes a lot for me to appreciate a movie where there's literally a scene of all the soldiers saying "Roll Tide." So the fact that I not only appreciate it but put it in my top 100 should tell you how good the movie is.
Yeah, Crimson Tide. I love this movie. It's probably my favorite Tony Scott movie too. I just love it. This is like the perfect Tony Scott movie. It just does everything he does. Like I say Tony Scott is like Michael Bay with a heart and a brain. Like he does like kind of like the dumb action stuff, and he has like there's like weird like close up and zooms, everything. They're kind of annoying, but his story's so great. It always helps for he has works with Denzel so much, and Denzel elevates everything, and him and Hackman together. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like neither one is like really a bad guy. Like Hackman says to be, it's like I'm simple, you're complicated, and that's the way they want it. That's why we're here. And that just sets up the stage for everything that happens in the story. It's so great how they stick to that, and just the back and forth. And there's two different philosophies, and you can see why both of them would stick to their guns so much. Like why it would be so important. Like Hackman's right. Like we had the order. This we have to do. If we don't do this, the country would be destroyed. And Denzel says, well, if we do it, we're wrong, and we're starting nuclear war. And it's not Hackman's job to think that way. So just that chess match between them through the whole movie is so much fun. Yeah, I love that. That's a great choice. So you're 89, you're 88. So we're going on to that's a real strong. We didn't talk about that too, but it's a very strong start. It's very strong bottom three for you there, Scott. Spence, let's see if you can live up to that.
Number 90 is The Lobster. Number 89 is The Babadook. And 88 is Face Off.
Nice.
All right, so The Lobster. It's real funny. This is just one of the films I think just hit me really good the day that I watched it, because I think this is actually the first R-rated movie I saw on my own in a theater, and it's just a really interesting experience to go in. I knew basically nothing. I didn't know who Lanthimos was. I'm like, oh yeah, I like the Ex Machina, so A24 is a god. So I walked into this blind, and it's just, I think the studio as a whole, but specifically Lanthimos, as I've caught up on his films, has a great way of just balancing these really jarring tonal shifts. How he creates one of the bleakest universes I've seen in fiction, and instilling with a lot of really just great comedy. Colin Farrell is Farrell's great. His romance with Weiss is fantastic. Underrated. I hear no one talk about her. Léa Seydoux in this is like a perfect antagonist, saying how there is no perfect between the two worlds, and it's just, hey, you can't have you have to be with someone versus you can't have anything. And seeing her reaction to the real world and not just the woods is incredible. One of my favorite endings of all time as well. And my number 89 is The Babadook. This is technically incorrect. However, I feel I need to shout it out. This is one of my favorite. This is my favorite straight up horror film. I found myself falling in love with the genre over the past few years, and this is it. It's because of this. I caught this on Netflix at 3 a.m. when I was 14, 15. I'm like, oh, hey, this is something. And it blew me away. It created one of, I think, the biggest horror monsters of the decade, while also having a really unique mechanic of how it's basically bound by the book and how it affects everyone, but also its greater metaphor of, fucking great comment, Garth. And this greater metaphor of dealing with trauma within the family. I think it's just really amazing. I adore Kent as a director. Shout out to The Nightingale, which I don't think any people have seen or even liked, but it's incredible. This is... if you are looking for a horror thing, and I think I told you, like, add to your watch. Let's do this. It's fantastic. And Face Off. 90s Cage is fucking rad. It is incredible, and I don't think I've ever had as much fun with the first time watch in years as I did watching this, where it's just pure batshit insanity. It's a little overly long, but Cage as Travolta as Cage and Travolta as Cage as Travolta is one of the best things put to film, period. And while the insanity does keep you engaged, I also find myself invested in the story, especially with Cage as Travolta as Cage talking to Cage's brother in the prison and everything around the prison. It has some of my favorite action set pieces, period. I think people like not loving 90s Cage, I show them this, like, this man is not just like a crazy dude who does a lot of drugs and buys dinosaur bones. This is a fucking actor, and he is amazing.
Okay. The Lobster. I'm a big fan of that one. This isn't my favorite Yorgos film, but it's close. I love the world they build. And I just love the tone, just how it is played so straight, like the whole way through, no matter how ridiculous it goes. Like it's played completely straight, and that super dry humor is just so great and so uncomfortable and so much fun. I even like the way like this movie affected the way I watched the killing of a sacred deer, and it really it improved that viewing for me because I went in with a completely different expectation than what I was getting. And so I mean, there's like kind of a meta thing there when you watch those two together. But yeah, this movie's a lot of fun. The Babadook, I agree with everything you said on that one. I like horror movies where the horror isn't just like the supernatural stuff. Like this movie is that woman's life is a horror movie before the ghost shows up. Like just like it's like she's so nightmarish. Like she lost her husband, her son has all this issues. She's on her own. She can't deal with it. Like it's such a terrible life for her to be living. Like watching her struggle through that is just so hard in and of itself. And then you add this monster to it. And yeah, the creature design is so great. I love the look of it, the sound, just the perfect amount of like showing and not showing, and just they give you enough of reveal and then pull it back. It's just so well made. Just such a nice, tight haunted house movie. You don't get a lot of those anymore. So yeah, Babadook, great horror movie. And like it's cool that it like launched your love of horror because it's a really good movie to do that. Face Off, I'm not a big fan of 90s Cage. It's just not my guy. The action stuff's good and it's fun and it's not terrible. It's not a terrible movie. I don't hate it. It's been a while since I saw it. But yeah, it's there. It's Face Off. It's Travolta and Cage in the 90s. You get what you get, one way or the other. All right, Rue, we're going to move on to your 93-88.
All right. My 90 is The Princess Bride. Oh, shit. I was expecting next there. Okay. My 89 is The Rundown. And my 88 is John Wick 2, Chapter 2. I was not expecting to talk about this movie this early. This is going to start off my run this week of movies that, again, watched a lot later in life than when it came out. So it took me a while to see it. But this is the quintessential fantasy family film with characters you absolutely love. Carrie Elwes is great. We all can quote the Inigo Montoya line. Andre the Giant is one of the most likable characters in any movie ever. And this movie has been talked about to death. It's brilliant. The Deadpool redid a whole Once Upon a Time in Deadpool just because how brilliant this movie is. From Mandy Patinkin to Robin Wright. The Princess Bride is about as rewatchable a film as you can imagine, and I absolutely love it. Number 89, The Rundown. If you haven't noticed, I love action films and action comedies. And this is the movie to me that showed that The Rock can absolutely begin to lead his own films in the genre that he kicks ass in. And he has great chemistry with Sean William Scott. Any movie that Ernie Reyes Jr. gets to whoop ass in, I'm also a huge fan of. And Christopher Walken is peak Christopher Walken. He does a whole monologue about the Tooth Fairy. and you're there for every word. I love every second of this film. It's brisk. It doesn't really waste any time. It also builds a bit of character in a movie you wouldn't think actually has some character development without like slowing down the movie at all, like learning how The Rock, what kind of person he is, what he wants to get into, why he doesn't use guns, and then that paying off later in the film. In the type of movie it is, it's actually a little bit of a surprise. It was one I was very surprised at how much I loved when I saw it, the very first time I saw it. And then number 88, John Wick 2. I think John Wick trilogy is one of the best action trilogies ever. And for me, Chapter 2 is my favorite because it builds the world. It builds the story. I really, really enjoy getting into the Continental and what the Continental is and the rules around it, and not being just limited to John Wick and who he is. It gets into why he is who he is and how deadly he is within that world. Plus, it has the greatest pencil trick since the Joker did it, and I love that. I love action, and I love Keanu Reeves doing action. So yeah, John Wick Chapter 2, my number 88.
All right. Yeah, Princess Bride doesn't make it out of the 90s. That's a surprise. I'm sure that's the lowest out of all four top 100s that it's been. Yeah, I expected that to ride a little longer too. But yeah, Princess Bride, I really like this movie. I'm like the perfect age to have a lot of nostalgia for this. I remember when I was a kid, like this movie was, newer. It was like out on video, and like my family would rent it every weekend and we watch it. I still really like it. I don't like it as much as everybody else. I totally respect it, and I respect everybody's love for it. I recognized how great this movie is, how many great things. For me, I just don't think it doesn't amount to more than the sum of its parts for me personally. But again, it is rewatchable. I mean, it's on TV. I'm going to sit down and watch it. I'm never going to say anything bad about it. I just don't love this as much as, like I don't have that like endearing passion for it like a lot of people do. But you're right. Andre's great in this. Everybody's Mandy Patinkin, just so many great characters, so many great lines. So yeah, like I said, I respect it more than I like it, but I still like it a lot. 89, The Rundown. I haven't seen The Rundown since it came out, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. But you're actually the second person to have this other top 100. Jake Marangoni also had this among people. So I'm gonna check this one out to see what the hype's about, because I haven't, like I said, I remember very, very little about it. So I'll rewatch that. John Wick 2. Honestly, it's been a while since I watched John Wick movies. They're all kind of blend together for me. So I'm trying to like in my head remember what exactly was in this movie. But as a whole, I love the movies. I love the trilogy. I love the world. I know this one expands a lot more on the world than the first one did. And I love the, this is one with Common, right? Common's in this one?
Yes, Common's in
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah, I love his character. This just like that cat and mouse game they play and them hunting each other down and just like that whole thing. The only thing that gets me about John Wick is like they talk about, oh yeah, John Wick's like the most dangerous man in the world. He'd kill anybody. Stay away from me. You're definitely going to die if you mess with John Wick. But as soon as it's time to hunt down John Wick, like every like nickel and dime bounty hunter's like, oh yeah, I'll try. What's the worst that could happen?
You die. That's the worst that happens.
I never really understood that. That's the only thing I don't get about these movies. But no, yeah, John Wick, like I said, what I remember is specifically about this movie I like, but I like the trilogy as a whole. All right, Jake, finish on the bottom three with your 93-88.
Oh, it's going to be hard. You guys have really good lists. I like everyone's list so far. Number 90, I have True Grit, the Coen Brother version, 2010 version. At number 89, I have Do the Right Thing.
Yikes.
And is that one today or
future?
Later?
Future, yikes. Yeah.
Okay. Today for me.
All right.
Okay.
Future for me. Yeah.
And at number 88, I have The Iron Giant. Okay. Okay. So I guess start with True Grit. I think that this Haley Steinfeld in this, I think might be, for me anyways, the greatest child performance of all time. And I kind of can't really think of anything that even comes close. You're in it for Rooster Cogburn because, it's a legendary character. It's a character that John Wayne won his Oscar for. There's a sequel called Rooster Cogburn. And the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie, you're just following around this little girl, and she holds the screen as much as anything. And the way Coen's write the Western dialogue is like poetic and beautiful, and just this whole movie. And I even have a suspicion that the trope that we now see a lot of with The Last of Us, with the gruff old man and the little girl going on a journey. I have a feeling that you might be able to trace that back specifically to this version of True Grit, but I have no way of proving that. I know it's an old trope. You got Lone Wolf and Cobb and all these things, but yeah, so that's all I have to say about True Grit. So I guess I'll skip right over to The Iron Giant. The Iron Giant. So for those who don't know, Brad Bird was like a child mentor or child prodigy of the like original like Disney founders. I think it's the 8 Old Men, or does someone know animation better than me? They basically like founded like modern animation, and he ended up getting fired off Fox and the Hound because he didn't agree with the way that Disney was going. And to me, The Iron Giant feels like an alternate history of like if the Disney Renaissance didn't happen and they continued to make movies with integrity through the 70s up until 1999 when The Iron Giant came out. I find this movie incredibly emotional. It's dark. It's weird. Brad Bird says it's about a movie about a gun who doesn't want to be a gun, which is really says a lot when you hear that like tragically his sister was actually murdered by her husband with a gun. There's a connection there, and yeah, it's a much darker movie than I think people give it credit for. So yeah.
All right, True Grit. I've talked about this movie a lot before. I disagree with Spence completely. I think this is definitely top 5 Coen, probably top 3. Jeff Bridges doing like his old man, like that's his like like basically his shtick now is like the old grizzled man. But I mean, he does it so good in this. And yeah, Haley Steinfeld is fantastic in her role and just the way she plays it and the characterizations, the like you said, the dialogue, the relationships between them. It's so great. That amazing score it has. Yeah, I won't go into much because I've talked about this a lot, but I really love this movie. It's fantastic. And then The Iron Giant. This is another one. I kind of miss this one age-wise as far as like the nostalgia goes. It's good. I respect what it does. As far as like it feels a little more Don Bluth than Disney to me, honestly, with the animation style and everything. But I mean, it's the animation is still good. I mean, I like the robot animation and everything. It's a fun like just basic like kind of that twist like on E.T. or something like the boy and his dog kind of trope. But it's good. I just don't. I've never had the connection to it. A lot of people do. But I'm not knocking for it. It's a solid pick, especially in the 80s. But that finishes up for the bottom 3 for everybody. So we're going to go back over to Scott, and we're going to start with your number 87.
All right, my number 87, the greatest concert film of all time. Stop Making Sense. Yeah, so I have to like just brag for a second because I was fortunate enough a week and a half ago when I was in New York, I got to see David Byrne's American Utopia on Broadway when it returned, which was a transformational experience. But yeah, I mean that my love of that show comes from watching Stop Making Sense, and I think it's just a great concert film on so many levels. And I don't even think you have to love the music that much. I just think that the passion and energy and the clear like talent of these performers is like kind of just impossible to resist. And I had the same reaction when I was watching American Utopia on HBO and then on Broadway. And I mean, David Byrne is such like a genius, not just from a musical standpoint, but also from a performance staging standpoint. Like the entire structure of this show that starts off with again him just acoustically playing Psycho Killer. That's how the concert starts, and then ends up with by the end you have a full band, you have backup singers, you have horns, you have the whole 9 yards, and he's wearing the big suit and sweating. And then, there's the Life During Wartime number where they're all running in place. And it's just like, it's amazing. Like there's always something interesting visually going on in addition to like you being captivated by the music. Jonathan Demme directs this. And I think he does a really smart thing and foregrounds David Byrne in all of this because David Byrne, like again, he's kind of the genius behind this whole thing, and so he really makes it a movie about David Byrne as much as it is just a movie about this whole show. And it's a quick watch. It's like 90 minutes or something. It's on YouTube. If you like music at all, even if you never heard a Talking Heads song in your life, watch it. Like again, I think it's just kind of impossible to me, and maybe I'm not the right audience because right person to say, because I do love the Talking Heads music, but I just think it's kind of irresistible and hard to admit that there isn't just an immense level of craft on display here, and that it didn't influence so many other concert films to follow.
I have not seen this, but I was looking it up, and just based on the playlist alone, it seems like it's something I'd really enjoy. I was actually listening to Talking Heads on the way home, on the drive home today, and
I can't believe you haven't seen it then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, like I haven't been like a lifelong fan of Talking Heads. It's something I've been like coming into a little more recently. So it's something that I do want to check out because I mean he's such a good showman. Even if you don't like, you said, even if you don't like the music, like he always puts us, even if it's just, you're going to be entertained, no matter what he's doing. It's going to, a lot of weird stuff, but it's going to be like interesting, entertaining, and hold your attention. So definitely something I want to check out. Everybody else on Stop Making Sense. Anybody else seen this?
Oh yeah, this one got me into the Talking Heads. I didn't really know them. I heard, this is the greatest concert movie of all time. So I checked it out and I was like, I don't have a lot to compare it to, but it's fantastic. And it got me into the Talking Heads. So yeah, it's a great pick. Of course it's a movie. Whoever said that.
Yeah, I have not seen it. However, I already have a documentary on my top 100, so Scott shouldn't be questioned because this is just a documentary. Though I thought you were gonna have American Utopia on here. Then I thought it was real controversy.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. It's the same thing, really.
Never even heard of this until today.
All right,
check it out. It's great.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, Scott, that takes us to number 86 for you.
All right, one of my favorite romantic comedies, The Philadelphia Story. Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of like I was saying with Crimson Tide, when you have like a certain actors at the top of your billing, it's hard to go wrong. And it's hard to go wrong when the top of your billing is Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, and James Stewart. This is just like, it's got that classic screwball, sort of fast-paced dialogue style of comedy that I think generally works really well. And when you combine the fact that, you have these amazing actors performing it, you have like a whole love, like it's not even a triangle, it's like a square. I don't know, there's 4 people in it really, because there's kind of 3 men who are chasing Katharine Hepburn. But I love Cary Grant's performance, I think, the most, because he's the former flame of Katharine Hepburn's character, and he's just kind of like, he's there, but he's just kind of like sitting back and watching as like James Stewart and then the guy who she's supposed to be marrying are like falling over each other to like get the attention of Katharine Hepburn, who, by the way, you totally understand why they want to get her attention, because she's just like mesmerizing. And he just kind of steps back, but then the way that like he swoops in at the end to like save the day, like he's been planning it all along almost. It's perfect. I love like the confidence that character has, and also there's some fun stuff with like him and James Stewart. They have like a fun little bromance that develops over the course of the movie, which is kind of an element you maybe not always see in these types of movies. And of course, this is something that I think a lot of people point out about the movie, but the scenes where they're drunk, very effective drunk acting. I wonder if they were actually drunk when they performed the scenes, because very believable. The movie's just great. Like, it's just one of those like classic movies that, again, I think is pretty hard to deny the brilliance of. And for me, few romantic comedies have equaled it in the last 70 years. So.
Yeah, when you have those top 3 build, you can't go wrong. I mean, just Hepburn. Out of the three, Grant's Cary Grant's probably my least favorite, just because I love the other two so much. But just seeing Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant together, like those two like iconic personalities interact with each other, is a lot of fun. And Katharine Hepburn is just amazing. Like you can't pick an era where like she's better than any other. Like she is just from like beginning to end, she is just always fantastic. She's always just so great to watch. Like you hear a lot of modern day actresses like kind of compared to her, and they don't hold a candle. Like no one's ever been her, and no one ever will be her. She's amazing. So yeah, it's a great the stories. The supporting cast is really good too, like the family and the staff.
The little sister,
the little
Dinah,
sister,
is hilarious.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, really good. Again, I don't love like that kind of like romantic screwball comedy style from that era. It does always hit for me, but this one definitely does. What's everybody else got on Philadelphia Story?
Have not seen it.
Yeah, I think drunk Jimmy Stewart might be the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like it might be. Like genuinely. Yeah, great movie.
I love the Katharine Hepburn, Jimmy Stewart, and I have a newfound love for Cary Grant, and I've never seen this, so I'm gonna need to see this soon because the charisma of those three individually is crazy. So putting them together, it's definitely one I need to put on my watch list.
Definitely. Yeah, so I think it'd be hard to find someone who wouldn't like this movie. Like you'd be really hard pressed.
Maybe it's not one of your favorites, but again, it's kind of hard to deny.
It's just got so much going for it. Okay, Scott, number 85, please.
All right, my 85, my second favorite movie about my favorite sport, The Natural. Yeah, so I love baseball. Like I said, it's my favorite sport, and what I like about The Natural is that this movie is basically a fairy tale, right? And there are things in it which defy logic, but also that's kind of what I love about baseball. I don't know. There's just like a magical quality about it. I am romantic about baseball, to quote another movie. There's kind of a magical quality about it when it's at its best. And you can see stuff that you can't see in any other environment, let alone sport. So I like that the movie, takes the most American straightforward thing that you can think of, a game of baseball, and installs these sort of fantastical elements into it. I mean, Robert Redford plays this guy who old baseball player who disappears for many years after getting shot, and then resurfaces when he's like very old and injured, and yet somehow he turns out to be an incredible player. He still hits home runs, and he kind of revitalizes this really struggling team that Wilford Brimley is the manager of, and they're trying to save the team financially as much as they are win games. And there's a lot of interesting subplots that are going on. Like it's based on a novel, and you can kind of tell when you watch the movie because there's just like a lot of little avenues that they go down. Glenn Close shows up as a woman that he has a romance with. There's also like the woman who was his girlfriend before all of it happened, and I think there's some really nice moments when he starts having success when she shows up to the games. But two things I particularly love: the score by Randy Newman, probably one of my like 3 or 4 favorite movie scores, and some of the shots in the movie, like the iconic final scene of the movie, final game where Roy Hobbs hits the home run into the lights and shatters the lights. It just chills every single time. And the shot of when he's starting to round first base, like the shot of his back with the like lights going off in the background like fireworks. I mean, that's just one of my favorite shots in the movie. It was the background of my computer for a while because I love that shot so much. And then they tie it all so beautifully in at the end with like bookending. At the beginning, he's playing catch in a field with his dad, and at the end, it's him with his son, and it's just it makes me tear up. So I love the movie a lot, and I definitely prefer it to the other sort of fairy tale baseball movie that exists. Though I think that one's good too, but I think Robert Redford gets the win over Costner for me.
Yeah, definitely. I watched this a couple weeks ago, first time since I was a kid. Like I remember watching this when I was real young. so I didn't remember too much about it. I think I have a lot of the same attitudes about baseball that you do. I like how this game, this movie romanticizes the game, but not to like a point where it's like ridiculous. Like it's still like there's a lot of realism. Like Wilford Brimley's character is very realistic, and they show very like realistic aspects of the game, especially at that time. Robert Duvall and his character, just it's kind of like the sleazy side of it is really well done. My only complaint about the movie is that it's long, and for how long it is, there's like you were kind of alluding to, there's a lot of loose ends, like kind of things just kind of come and go out of the movie. Like Glenn Close's character, their relation, I don't feel like we're given enough to care about their relationship. They almost set it up like a Forrest and Jenny type relationship, like their love since they're little kids. But you flash through that so quick, and then she comes back. It's like I don't care about that yet. What you think I care about that more than I do, or you're assuming that I do. Same with like the relationship with Kim Basinger's character later on. Like she's in a few scenes, and then it's all like dramatic when he wants to get back with his old girlfriend. I'm like, well, you really didn't set that up enough. Same with the relationship, the feud between the coach and the owner. There's a few lines of dialogue, and then like the rest of the plot is like heavily based on that. Like I just don't feel like the movie does enough to. It's like, here, care about this, and even like I forget who plays her, but the woman who shoots him, like that's just like that's like a fascinating thing. Like it's like a serial killer hunting athletes, and like she's there for a minute, and then she's just completely gone out of the movie.
Well,
never
commit suicide. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, like the story just kind of goes nowhere.
Sure.
But so I mean that's my biggest complaint. Like I wish it would have like kind of just tightened up and followed like a few of those threads a little tight more than going. And I understand it's based on a novel; it's kind of hard to do. But otherwise, it is a good like as far as the baseball stuff goes, great baseball movie. Everybody else have any opinion on the Dutch one?
Sports are yucky.
I've really been meaning to see this because I love Randy Newman and I love the Randy Newman score. I forget, I don't do this a lot, but last week someone picked a movie and I was like, oh yeah, I listen to the score all the time. I haven't seen the movie. Adelaide, I think it was one of yours.
If Bill Street Could Talk, I think, wasn't it?
Yes. There's two scores that I listened to that I'm like, I haven't seen this movie, but I bet it's great. Yeah.
I've also never seen this movie, but I also don't like baseball that much. So I'm sorry. I just don't. Doesn't mean I don't like baseball movies. Just not the hugest baseball fan. So never went back to watch this one.
I will watch this in like the next week because it's on my list. Yeah.
Cool. All right. That's 84 for you, Scott.
All right. This is where things take a turn. My 84 is Say Anything.
Hey.
Oh, I thought you were going to say yikes.
No.
You're going to save me again like you saved me last week. But Say Anything is I am generally like I love coming of age movies, obviously, but I'm generally not a fan of the 80s stuff. I don't think a lot of it holds up well. I don't like the John Hughes movies. But I think this movie is an exception. It feels really honest. It's quirky in a way that doesn't seem forced, that it's the right amount of quirky. And a lot of that comes from John Cusack as Lloyd Dobler. And Kirk's opinion makes me sad on this movie because Lloyd Dobler is one of my favorite movie characters. I just love how true to himself that he is. I love, when he's at the party towards the beginning and he's like, he's keeping his eye on Diane, on Ione Skye's character, but he's not like being weird. He's not like being creepy. He's the key master, right? He's just like the nice guy that everybody trusts, and he's not going to do anything sleazy, and that's just kind of the basis for his character over the whole movie, is that he's just kind of a carefree, like happy-go-lucky guy who sets his mind on one thing, which is being in a relationship and being in love with Diane, and he wants that to be his future. John Mahoney as the dad is like, what's your future, like where are you going with his life? And he says, I just want to spend as much time with your daughter as I can. And he also wants to be a kickboxer, of course. And his dialogue with John Mahoney about that is pretty hilarious in the first scene where he shows up to the house. But and I like the subplot with John Mahoney and Diane, which it's a pretty big subplot. It's half the movie really about revealing stuff about his character. I think all of that works really well. And of course, again, talking about iconic scenes, you have one of the most iconic scenes in a romance movie in this movie, and it's iconic for a reason, right? Like it's great to watch in a vacuum in isolation, but when you actually, have seen everything that leads up to it in the movie, in the context that leads up to that boombox moment in the movie, it just makes it even better. And yeah, I don't know that I have much more to say, but Cameron Crowe, he's very, I mean, the ultimate hit or miss director who just makes like either my favorite movie or like just something that no one ever wants to talk about again. But this is one where he scores a direct hit for me.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of this movie. I do not like Lloyd Dobler at all. It just, like I said in my review on Letterboxd, like in real life, if a person makes their relationship their entire personality trait, it's a really dull person, and I think that goes for movie characters too. And just as a dad of a high school senior who has like a lot of potential in life, like if Lloyd Dobler came knocking on my door, I would kickbox his ass right off the porch because it's like, you only want to spend time with my daughter. Well, my daughter has a lot better things to do with her life than just spend time with you. Like, go get a job or something. I'm sorry. That's me. Like, you either die a hero, or you live long enough to identify with the dad in every movie. That's where I'm at in my life. That prison scene, like everything John Mahoney says over the prison scene is absolutely true. No. And it's like he's just going to hold her back. Like that scene at the end makes me sad because, like, oh, she has so much going for her, and he is just going to drag her down. Like in my headcanon, they land that plane, and like a week later, she kicks him to the curb because she has much more important things to do in her life than waste her time with him. Everybody else on, say anything.
Well, John Mahoney's a piece of shit in the movie. He's stealing money from elderly people. Like, yeah. And also, I think you guys are acting like the movie is a little bit more critical of Lloyd's obsessive behavior than you're letting on. I don't think that his persistence is purely romanticized in the movie. I think that the movie has a pretty objective view of like, yeah, this kid is a little bit too obsessive about this. But yeah, I think Lloyd Dobler is like a new type that we kind of needed after all the John Hughes like categorization that doesn't exist in real life.
Yeah,
I think we kind of got that with in Ghost World, the Scarlett Johansson character that feels like in the same category as Lloyd Dobler. It's like a new type of boy. He's sensitive, but and intelligent, but he prefers to hang out with the girls. It's a new type of character, and I think Lloyd Dobler's cool. What are you talking about? If Lloyd Dobler came to date my daughter that I just invented, I'd be like, yeah, have at her.
Oh man,
are you?
I mean, not like that. Like,
are you XJ9's dad?
XJ9.
Only for the Zoomers. I have not seen this.
I'm going to keep the streak alive. I've only seen this in that scene in isolation. Nothing that Scott has talked about today, I have seen. We'll see if that keeps going.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break for a little bit. Spence, we're moving on to your number 87.
I got you. I'll pick a very popular movie I'm sure you've seen. Wag the Dog. So, this is going to sound weird out of context. I've thought for a while, how do I say this? There's not really a good way to say it. I love propaganda in film. I think it is so fascinating to see like the machinations of humans and how they try to manipulate the public consciousness. It's such like an interesting storytelling technique. And this isn't the last time we're going to talk about it in this series, but this just blew me away. Like I was talking about it with some of our friends, and they're just like, "You should watch this," even though Jesus Christ, Scott. And like they're like, "You should watch this." You're the best. Like, okay, let me just stand and watch it. Like, no thoughts. I had to go see it, and holy fucking shit, this is absolutely my type of movie. Like, just like to hide a president's sex scandal, they make up a war. Like, it's just there, and I think that is so terrifying, but also like weirdly convincing. Especially now that I'm watching The West Wing, I think politicians can do fucking anything, and we're like, yeah, it could happen. All the performances are fantastic. I especially love Dustin Hoffman in this. He is maybe my favorite performance of everyone in there. But even then, like it's a really tight cast. This is one of my go-to of just like it's not like not super popular, but it's from a bunch of people who like you'd seen some of their stuff that just went under the radar. Like if you don't like Barry Levinson, too bad. You're gonna like this movie. You don't like De Niro, too bad. You're gonna like this movie. Everything in here is like Kino, like primo shit that you have to check out.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty positive I'm the only one on the panel old enough to remember that like this really happened.
It did happen, yeah.
Like the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke, and then like the next day, America was dropping bombs everywhere. Like that was real, and that was after this movie. It wasn't like this movie was based on it. Like this movie was like prescient that it foresaw that future.
It's like that's a great idea. Why did we do that?
But this is it's good. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised it's on top 100. I saw it when it came out, and I watched it again a couple months ago just because you had it on your list. But it's good. It's like Hoffman's always great. De Niro's always great. It's cool to see them together. It's kind of a different character for De Niro. You don't see him kind of play that. Usually, his character is a little more straightforward. Usually doesn't really have anything up his sleeve. To see him play a character like that, who's pulling the strings, is really interesting to see. And the character that Hoffman creates, that like typical Hollywood producer, is really good. And like a lot of subtleties in performance that I enjoy. The rest of the cast, I could a lot of like 90s like blank faces. That I could, leave or take, but the two of them are great. And like I said, it's. I'm not gonna say it's a terrible choice for your top 100, especially when you're in your 80s. Just more surprising than anything. Anybody else seen Wag the Dog?
I've seen it a long time ago. I did like the movie. I don't think we've mentioned his name, but David Mamet, who's definitely one of my favorite writers, was one of credited writers on this movie. He's probably responsible for most of it, let's be honest. But yeah, it's a good movie. And even going back further than what Kirk was talking about, like the whole Grenada thing that happened during the Reagan administration also is like kind of influenced this. But it's an interesting concept for a movie. Could probably be a little bit more nuanced from what I recall, but it's a fun time.
I lived through the real life thing that happened. Didn't watch this movie though, so I've kind of seen it, I guess.
Jake, nope. Okay.
I'll add it to the list.
All right.
I did already.
Spence, you're number 86 then.
Now we go back to me being predictable. Tootsie, because I'm me. This is just a really. I don't know. This was just a really pleasant time. I'll always remember this. I watched this in my aunt's bedroom because my parents were like, we're going to go watch a movie. They watched Exodus, Gods and Kings, and I watched this instead. I just think it's a really fascinating perspective on feminism as you get further into the film about just how these actresses try to speak out and how they're in this really oppressive system. And it takes a man in a dress to come in and shake things up. Nothing said by a woman, but a man is the one who needs to change feminism and perceptions of within the film industry, which I think is just like a really interesting take in the 80s when you're already dealing with so much internalized sexism within it. And once again, Hoffman, incredible. I've always really loved Jessica Lange and Terry Garr in this. I think they're both given like career best performances. This is just a film that I think grows on me more and more over time. That it was both like it was really prescient then and still prescient now. And seeing Dustin Hoffman play a douchebag, no, never. It works on a lot of levels.
I love Tootsie. I think this is a great movie. Dustin Hoffman is really fan. This may be one of his best performances. Just see the arc that he goes through, and like where he begins, and like why, like his motivation beginning, and see like how the experience changes him and the relationships he has with different people, the women he works, that he's around, and everything. This is the way he's seeing how they're treated, what they go through. It's funny. It's like just the scenes of them, like when they're filming the soap opera, and just him changing the lines and everything. And I can't remember the name of the guy who plays the older doctor, but he's just like this buffoon actor who, he's always reading the cue cards and everything. Just a really good, great cast. Dabney Coleman is the boss, really good. Charles Durning is the dad. I love him in this movie. And like, he's just like a really sweet, like the relationship that he builds, like he really genuinely starts to feel for her. and then him having to deal with finding out what's going on and everything, and kind of coming to terms with that. And almost like the friendship they form at the end is really cool. But no, I love this movie. There's a lot to like about it. It's another one, just fantastic performance. It's a great story. Really well directed, really well made. I love Tootsie. Anybody else on this one?
Yeah, I think this movie gets like incorrectly pegged for the plot point that Dustin Hoffman is going undercover as a woman because there's no good roles for men. I think, yeah, he thinks that, but the movie doesn't agree with him. Dustin Hoffman's problem in this movie is that he's an asshole. And then suddenly, once he gets in touch with his feminine side, he starts to, he gets more in touch with himself. And that's what makes him successful. It's not actually that there are no good roles for male actors. You see him in the opening scene bitching about it. And I think the movie is completely not on his side at that point. But it is funny that he's complaining about that when, like, today we could look around and say, yeah, there's no good roles for women. That's the real problem. But I don't think the movie's on his side.
Sadly, haven't seen it.
I really hope I can talk about another movie besides my own today.
Can I just say one more thing about this too? Dustin Hoffman, he said that he looked at himself in the mirror and he realized that like he was an ugly woman, and that it broke his heart because he realized that he wouldn't have went up and talked to himself at a party, and he was like bragging about that. Like he was like, "Oh, like I'm so sensitive. Look at I was like, that's not like sensitive. Like it's the most shallow thought."
But I forgot to mention Bill Murray and Terry Garr are also really great at this as well. Like they're the whole supporting cast. Like those scenes at the parties and everything are a lot of fun too. Like I just so much like about this movie. 85 Spence.
It's the better of two movies where Bill Murray is rematched with a cross-dresser. This one, I think Rue you have seen. Speaking of the Coens, it's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Pretty sure I'm yikesing to another episode.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can't talk, but you've seen the movie.
I've seen the movie. There you go.
And my 84 is Up in the Air. I'm forgetting the actual quote, but for me, this movie is like captured in one of like my favorite monologues of all time, and it just starts with how much does your life weigh? And that is just the thesis of the film. How George Clooney has been going through life sort of flaky isn't the right word, but never like being truly committed to much in his life. And over time, seeing how like nothing is truly perfect and everything he's missed through Anna Kendrick as his new like coworker, teammate, whatever, taking pictures for his sister's wedding, and then falling in love with Vera Farmiga just because she shares his interest, which you never really found in a person before. I think it's a film that grew on me a lot as I got older. Because I saw it for the first time when I was like 16. I was like, oh yeah, this is like whatever. And I'm still like barely an adult. But as I'm like seeing adults around me change and friends get older, I'm seeing all of them become Ryan. And it's really hard to see them go through that. And then I think the film works on a lot of just interesting perspectives and speaks a lot to age and our modern age, not the same kind of age. I've lost my words with this, but I highly recommend it.
This is another one I'm surprised. Not necessarily surprised to see on your top 100, but just on top 100 in general. I know this movie gets a lot of praise, and I like it. I think it's good. I think I've said already on the show last week, or I've talked about it recently. Like, I'm not the biggest George Clooney fan, so he's not somebody, in a role like this is going to grab me. He doesn't it's not somebody who ruins it for me, but he's not somebody who I'm like, oh yes, George Clooney acting is so exciting. But I do like a lot of situations, like you said, just that idea of what is your basically like he's kind of like just like a weird kind of like almost like midlife crisis type situation. And my favorite part of the scenes where he's firing people. Like with J.K. Simmons, I think Zach Galifianakis, and just those to me were the best scenes in the movie, just because like they're so real and so visceral, and the way they're handled and written, and just a lot of that supporting cast, like a lot of the people where he's going, just very realistic. I remember there's like very realistic looking people, like it looks like this is set in the real world. And just the idea of like having that job, what he does, and what he, the impact he has on people's lives, just carries so much weight with it. So again, like I said, to me, not a top 100 movie, but it's not something I'm going to attack you over. I think it's a good movie to like. Everybody else up in the air.
I've seen this movie. I've seen it. Talk about it. I've only seen it once though, but I do remember watching it and just really fascinated on how Clooney's character was really, really trying to bullshit his way through firing people, and what that really does to his soul when he's trying to to make them feel better about what he has to do. And I think the J.K. Simmons scenes is the one that really stands out, because when he lays into them, J.K. Simmons knows how to lay into people. And it is one of the most entertaining scenes in that entire film. I do remember liking the dynamic between him and Anna Kendrick, as well as it's Clooney and Farmiga, right? Rhea Farmiga.
Yeah.
I just think that both of those dynamics worked really well together. And it was a really interesting film to watch. I remember I enjoyed it. But like Kirk, after I saw it, I didn't have an urge to go back to it after. So.
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead. Oh, you go ahead.
Okay, sure. I like the movie, but I'm with Kirk on this one. This being a top 100 movie is a little bit of a head scratcher for me, because like it's a perfectly solid, good 4-star movie. But like, I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't have that thing which takes it to the next level. It's not my favorite Jason Reitman movie. That TBD to come later. But I do find something hilariously meta about the scene where George Clooney, who famously was like, "I'm never going to get married," has to convince Danny McBride's character that he should go through with his wedding. And you get like the image of like, this is George Clooney also convincing himself to do it, because now he is married. I don't know how much of a role that played, but in his ultimate decision. But it is kind of a funny like meta layer to what he's doing in that scene. But it's a good movie. I'm not going to knock anyone for enjoying it.
I'm with you on this one, Scott. I basically feel the same way. I really like this movie. I think all the performances in it are really good. I particularly like the Zach Galifianakis scene where he just breaks down. It's just a great use of like it's actually a great use of cameo, because it's shorthand for like, hey, this is a person and I think that's actually a pretty clever way to use a cameo. And yeah, I really enjoy this movie. Jason Reitman's next movie, though, it has a gunner seat. That's a reference to the terrible Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer for all y'all.
If someone Nazario is coming for your life.
All right, Rue, we get to talk about some movies you've definitely seen, because we're going to go to your number 87.
All right, my 87 is a movie that I think is the epitome of one of the best actors of all time, carrying the shit out of a film. That if it wasn't him, maybe it wouldn't be as good, but because it is him, it is that damn good. And my 87 is Training Day. This is not Denzel Washington's best performance. He should have gotten an Oscar win, best actor wise, before this. But damn if he did not act his ass off in this. So much so, Ethan Hawke almost got killed, got high while on the job, was threatened with rape, almost got framed, and we still somehow are rooting for the guy who wasn't planning this all day, was planning it all week. Denzel is just a masterclass at anything that he ever does. And this one, being the bad guy that you root for, or the bad guy you don't root for, but you can't keep your eyes off of, from beginning to end, is just one of just the most fun times you have rooting for or against somebody ever. He also dies really well. He dies really well, and knows how to light a cigarette and let it limp off his mouth while he's dying. It's just the things he does is amazing. I think Training Day is just one of the best cop movies that we've ever gotten. So my love for Training Day knows no end.
Yeah, Ru, I'm right there with you. I mean, you read my mind, my opinion on this movie. I think it's in and of itself a good movie. It's a good cop movie. It's a movie we'd probably talk about and watch, but without Denzel, that's all it is. Like, Denzel has never not made something he's in infinitely better, and this is the perfect example of that. Like, he takes this movie and just elevates it to a whole other level that it wouldn't have gotten to otherwise. The character he creates in this movie is so good, so terrifying, and like you said, he's so charming. Like, you like him. And like as he's like wooing Ethan Hawke, he's wooing you too, and like you're like buying into it. And by the time you realize, everything, you've already been sucked in, and like you said, you're kind of on his side. The way it's so great on rewatch to go back and see every little thing he does to set him up. You're like, oh my gosh, like he's just playing him like a fiddle this whole time. Like, I see the car when he's like trying to give the smoke was it crack he was smoking, or was it? I forget. Anyway, when he was already smoking the car, and like he's like, no, he's like, okay, get out, you're done. This job isn't for you. You can't do this job. You can't have this job unless you do it. And he makes it to him. And later on, he's like, oh, remember when you were smoking earlier? Well, it's so beautiful. It's just such a masterful plot on his part to set him up to do that. It's so, like you said, he dies. So it's like, you shot me in the ass. It's so great. That whole scene in the neighborhood, like when he's like still trying to exert that power, even though he's losing it, like he can't deal with the fact he's losing it. It's such a great layered character.
King Kong ain't got shit on me line isn't even the best line in that.
I know, right?
In that whole monologue. So,
but he and the thing is, like, Ethan Hawke's really good in this too.
Yeah,
like he's holding his own. But like I said, Denzel's like on a whole other plane in this movie. Everybody else on Training Day.
And this has one of the best songs of all time, but I've not seen the movie.
The movie's solid. I think I'm not as high on it as you guys, although I agree with the underlying sentiment that it's a performance-driven movie. I don't really find Antoine Fuqua to be that interesting of a director, so I think that probably holds it back a little bit. But I do think the performances are very good. I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of both of these actors. I do think Ethan Hawke deserves some credit as well for his performance in the movie. But if we're going to talk about movies where Denzel carries the movie, I would have probably gone with The Hurricane over this one, but that's just my personal choice.
Yeah, I think Denzel is like the best movie star, because you could put Denzel in like a piece of shit movie like Equalizer 2, and I'm like, I'm there, Sorry if that's on someone's list. The thing I love about like Denzel though is that he can like, there can be like a dead sex worker and he can go like, hello. Like, he just reacts like no one reacts, and like it works somehow. And I'm forever thankful to this movie also for the Dave Chappelle, Wayne Brady sketch that it birthed, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Does Wayne Brady have to choke a bitch? Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Hilarious.
Great.
That's the thing about Denzel, though. He's like, I try to think of somebody else in that class with him, and he's the only I can think of who he is like a movie star. He's an action star, but he is also just such an amazing actor. Like, there's nobody who like walks that line like Denzel.
Tom Cruise.
But he always takes Denzel always makes like a weird choice though, and it works.
I said what I said.
Okay, that was your number 87, Ruth. So we're gonna go on to your 86.
My 86 is one of the first horror films that I've actually enjoyed watching, and that's why it probably stays up there with me, because it's a lot of the films that make my top 100 are ones that I go back and rewatch a lot, or I did. And I think it's another performance-driven film as well. My number 86 is Sleepy Hollow. So 86 for Sleepy Hollow. For me, it's one where I love Johnny Depp in the film. I think he is just the roles where him and Tim Burton work. They work really, really well. He's extremely charismatic. The movie itself is just a whole atmosphere that mixes the gore with the mystery, with a lot of humor that you don't expect in the film going into it. And Christopher Walken coming in and being him without even having to talk as the Headless Horseman is another just good performance for him. I just remember going back to it and actually thinking that it was like, okay, this is a horror movie that doesn't feel stupid. to me, because I think a lot of horror films just I don't get into them. I'm not sucked in. And this one, from the beginning, it sucked me into it. It made me interested in Ichabod Crane as a character and where they were going with the film. And it also has a surprisingly stacked cast, or just a cast of people I've seen a lot in the movies that I watch. Ian McDermott, Christopher Lee, Richard Griffiths. And I just think it's as atmospheric as it is, it's a fun time. It's a really fun time to follow through the mystery of this weird ass town with a lot of weird ass people, and some really cool kills as well. Brzakala.
This one I have not seen since it came out, so I don't recall a whole lot about it. I do want to revisit it just because of everything you said, like the cast and just the story. My problem is that for the most part, Tim Burton, when you give him existing IP, it misses a lot more than it hits. So that makes me a little nervous about it. But it's definitely what I want to revisit. Everybody else on Sleepy Hollow?
Haven't seen it, but another great TNT movie from Rio.
Oh, we got a lot more coming.
Have not seen it.
Oh, I absolutely adore this movie. You guys should all check it out. It's like the cinematography, the look of this movie is incredible. Tim Burton basically said he was trying to make it look like black and white without making a black and white movie. And it's basically like a slasher movie with the wonderful character actors that you mentioned, Rue. Like Ian McDermott, if you want to see him, like, run away from the headless horseman, it's just kind of a blast. Like, that's why I watch this movie over and over and over again. I think it's a great pick. Just the set design, the design of the whole thing. I think it's one of the best designed Tim Burton movies. And Johnny Depp's performance is so strange and interesting at the center of it. He said that he based it on a teenage girl. And you can really see that when you watch the movie, which it's so much fun. It's such a subversive performance for a blockbuster, expensive horror movie. I think this is a great pick.
All right, Rue. Moving on, you're 85.
My 85 is quintessential rom-com in my life, and I think in a lot of people's. It's Notting Hill. I think that Hugh Grant is a gem of a man. He does awkward like nobody else. I absolutely love the Horse and Hound interview and how he fakes his way in there and tries to make it work. The relationship between him and Julia Roberts, it's so, you root for it. It's so frustrating at the same time how they just keep getting together and then fucking it up. And then getting together and fucking up. And it's just like, come on, get this together. And when she's in front of him, I'm just a girl in front of a boy. And he doesn't follow through. And then his entire family gathers around him and tells him he's an idiot and they go after him. I love following this film. It has one of my favorite supporting performances ever in Rhys Ifans. I think he's absolutely hilarious in this film. I think he steals it from front to back, especially in that last scene. It's an adorable film that I love watching. I hope a lot of you have had as much as a good time as I have watching this film.
Oh, Rue, you're doing pretty good up till now.
I
had never seen this. I'd avoid watching this movie, and I watched it recently because I had to. And this is like the most because movie I've ever seen. Like, why are they interested in each other? Why do they want to be together? Because movie. There's the setup for the premise for the relationship is just ridiculous. It just comes out of nowhere for no reason. And then it just goes from there. I have never understood the charm of Hugh Grant. Like, I know it's supposed to be like he's so awkward, he's charming. He's just awkward, and it's obnoxious and annoying. I've never liked watching Hugh Grant ever. I'm not a big Julia Roberts fan. I really don't understand that hype either. She's not as bad as Hugh Grant, but she's not somebody that I'm like, I just don't see it. So the two of them together, I wasn't excited about. The movie is way too long for what it is, and like you kind of said, like it's just like okay, they're together, they're not together, and it's just like dragging it out forever. Like that whole like last 15 minutes, like when he goes to the movie set and like misunderstands, and then like she comes back, that to cut that whole thing. Like it could be 20, 25 minutes shorter.
Like one of the best parts of the movie, man. Come on.
I do enjoy the best part about this movie is the supporting cast. Like I love the supporting cast. They're friends. They're so much more interesting than the main characters. Like the scenes where they first meet at that party, and when they come back together at the end of the restaurant. Those are the best parts of this movie. Your Reese Fonz and the rest of the cast. What's his name? The dude from Downton Abbey. And just all those characters, the couple, the woman in the wheelchair, Hugh Bonneville, just they're great. I love them. If the movie was about them, I would love this movie. But Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts keep getting in the way. So yeah, I was not a big fan of this one at all. Everybody else on Notting Hill.
I just like to point out that the director of this movie, Robert Mitchell, he died like a week ago. Now,
Roger, but yes. Yeah.
So now Kirk's an asshole. Got it.
I said, yeah. So
I said what I said.
Speak ill of the dead. Rise Fonz. I think you hit it on the head, Rue. He is the thing that everyone in these romantic comedies is like copying now. Like that's the high watermark for what the silly best friend character is supposed to be, and often imitated and never fully hits that mark. So yeah, I think it's a great pick too.
I like the movie. It's not my favorite Richard Curtis movie, but like I am generally a fan of his stuff. I think his writing, I don't know, gets to the whatever hopeless romantic there is of me. I already had About Time, obviously, tonight. Yeah. But I think that movie and this movie and just in general Richard Curtis's work, the supporting cast, like he has such like genuine affection, I think, for the supporting characters in his movies, and I think that's something that takes it to a whole nother level, and something that takes About Time to another level. But we'll obviously talk about that when we get there. But it's a good movie. Like again, Richard Curtis's, I can usually find something to like in all of his movies.
Respectfully, Kirk, find joy in your life. This movie's amazing. I love it to pieces. Like this is also one of my favorite rom-coms. I've only seen it like once, but I always think about it. I always want to go back to it. You can't say the supporting cast, like this movie is made not by the leads, but by Reese Fonz and Alec fucking Baldwin, who is maybe his most punchable, which is a high bar for that man. I love everything, and their center romance. It's not just fucking because movie. I love what they foster together, because it is just this, like she's lost her way when she finds this small light and she gets away from all of the fame of it. It's fantastic, and its ending is absolutely incredible. Everything in this movie is working so much. I don't get how someone could not like this.
The drive from his bookstore over to the taping, that is absolutely hilarious. The end when he does misunderstand and she calls him back is what a rom-com is kind of about. It makes you just melt in there. I can see why some people, Kirk, don't like Hugh Grant, and also same thing with Julia Roberts, but I do. I think that his awkwardness is enjoyable, and Julia Roberts is America's sweetheart, and I fall for it. I do. I'm putty in their hands. So yes, Spence, thank you.
Fair enough. All right, Rue, your number 84.
I will not talk about this because I yikesed it, and it will be yikes to a future episode, but it is Do the Right Thing.
That's the truth, Ruth. Yikes.
All right, Jake, we're coming over to you for number 87.
It's a quote from the
after talking about such a nice movie like Notting Hill, I gotta bring Michael Haneke, my boy, into the conversation. No. We're talking The Piano Teacher. I just showed my wife this movie right before we watched this, and she was like, I was like, did you like it? And she's like, I'll never watch that again. So I personally like that's why I said, "Oh, I'll be on in a minute." The piano teacher was finishing up. I personally love like movies that like show you this window into something that you're really not supposed to see. And I think the piano teacher does a fantastic job because by the end of the movie, I am right there with Hubert's character. Uh, I think that even though her character has this very like alien, twisted sexuality that you might not, the movie doesn't even really need you to understand. Everyone can understand the risk that comes in opening up in a relationship and trying to connect with other people. And Haneke, since one of his languages is violence, uh, of course he heightens it to, well, what if your love language was violence? And the whole thing just really works for me. It feels so forbidden. It basically works for me like Taxi Driver must have worked for people in the 70s. So yeah, the piano teacher. You guys seen this one?
I have it. This is on Criterion Channel. I have it on my watch list. I had it on my, I had it set up to watch, but I've been past couple weeks for me. I haven't been feeling great. A lot of hectic stuff going on, and every time I go to watch this, I'm like, is a Haneke movie good for me right now? Probably
It's
not.
It's
Just watch it more. That'll lift you up.
yeah.
So I've been delaying watching this. I'm going to try to get to these ones I'm not watching. I am going to try and have seen before the show's over so I can make a better judgment of your entire list. But this one I just have been procrastinating on. So everybody else on the piano teacher.
All I know about this is that the movie is like really horny. So not sure if it's like a great wireless movie.
It's not. It's very cold. Like my wife was agreeing that it's not a. It's so the opposite of pornographic. It's so cold and distant from any of the sexuality that's happening on screen. It's not judgmental, but it's also not pornographic in any way.
I have not seen it, but I did read the plot for when I studied Michael Haneke for a match a long time ago. And yeah, very disturbing. I mean, I like funny games. I do. But like his movies are just tough. Like Kirk said, it's tough to just click play and be like, all right, yeah, I'll throw this on. Especially now and like, I have long days at work. I come home, I sit down, I just want to watch, the
Notting
comfort
Hill.
movie. And yeah, sure. I want to watch About Time, but yeah, I don't want to watch The Piano Teacher. Maybe someday when I'm feeling particularly miserable, maybe after the next time Tennessee loses a really bad game, which will probably be sooner rather than later, I'll do it.
Watch it at 2 a.m. That's the way to watch
Yeah.
It's gonna be a no.
it.
All right, I thought you had this one. All right, Jake, your number 86 then, please.
Okay, so I think that The Piano Teacher is the third most offensive movie I have on my list this
Fucking
week.
Christ.
Oh, no.
The second most offensive movie I have on my list, I beve, the second most offensive one, I believe, is Team America World Police. Now, I understand some people's resistance to Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I don't align with their views politically. I don't really watch South Park. I don't really care for that. The thing that overrides all of that for me is that this is a singular vision where you can literally feel the artist's hands on every fucking thing in this movie. They are controlling these puppets. They're writing everything. They're acting every character basically. It's so singular that the bad politics that come along with it's just part of it. And Yeah, I couldn't help but read Kirk's review. Kirk, you pointed out that how hasn't someone been canceled for this? And yeah, I could see that, but yeah, it's just there's nothing else like it, and yeah, I gotta defend this very specific artistic vision. Apparently, they wanted to at some point. They got a hold of the script for The Day After Tomorrow, and they wanted to remake that just based on purely the script and release it simultaneously to The Day After Tomorrow. And this was their second most marketable idea. So, yeah, thoughts on Team America?
Yeah, this is another one I hadn't watched, and I watched it now because I had to. And I will just say thank God for 1.5 speed on Netflix because it really got me through this one. I'm not a big fan of Parker and Stone's humor. I just feel like it's just, what can we do to offend people? And that's easy to do. And and I feel like the politics in this, I think, are like there's enough juice in it for like a Saturday Night Live skit. Like that opening sequence, I think would have been like a great Saturday Night Live skit. But I think it just that's the idea. They stretched it out into a movie, and then like it kind of like the whole what was that the Happy Time Murders. It's like, oh look, it's all this stuff. It's all funny because it's puppets. It's puppets, blowing each other up and having sex and throw it up, and it's puppets, so it's funny.
That's so no.
So I feel like it's in that same vein. I will say I'm not a big fan. Everybody else on Team America.
I can't get on.
But that's all I got to say about it. I liked baseball. That's it.
I can't get on board
basketball.
with
Yes, I did.
That's an insult.
It's been in the top 100. Hey, it's been in the top 100. I can't agree with Kirk's sentiment because I do love the musical Avenue Q. However, I do think this movie. Well, I haven't seen it, but I probably would not enjoy it. I have seen the documentary though. This film is not yet rated, which talks about the ratings board, and there's conversation in the movie about how the censor how the puppet sex scene like survived the censors and like prevented how were they able to prevent the movie from getting NC-17 or whatever instead of an R. So that's the extent of my exposure to it. Although of course I know the famous song that everyone knows as well.
The Michael Bay what about Michael Bay missing the point to Pearl Harbor or?
No, America that song is from this movie. Yeah.
Hey, I love the police. So this is both Stone and Parker's second best film and the second best film with Puppet Dick. And you know what? It's fine. Like I'm not horribly offended by it. Like, yeah, it's not aged the best, but some of the jokes still work. I think their whole criticism and like poking fun at like the American industrial complex and how we fight wars is like interesting commentary. Stone and Parker have always been like 50-50 on being smart or being total fucking dumbasses. But it's good. It's not top 100 material. I don't want to be shown for Up in the Air when this makes the list. But like,
there's nothing else like it though. Like it's so unique.
Again, it's your Puppet Dick isn't even the best. That is a failure.
What is the best Puppet Dick? I want to know.
Anomalisa. It's emotional Puppet Dick. It's even better.
Okay. Yeah, that might be the best puppet.
What are we
dick.
doing here, folks?
Okay. Is Ethan? Somebody channel Ethan.
I would say where's
very Ethan conversation.
I'm sure
I actually choose Anomalisa.
All right, Jake, give us your number 85.
At 85, I have my Canadian boy, Cronenberg's A History of Violence. Yeah, okay, A History of Violence. I just think this movie is kind of perfect. It's one of those movies that 2005, it just like hit me at the right time where it was like, Viggo Mortensen is like the way that he shifts in and out of between this I don't want to spoil A History of Violence. That's the issue. okay.
16
Have you
years.
guys
It's
seen-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. In the history of violence, it is revealed at some point that he is in the witness protection program, and that he's basically been living a lie, and that violence is he's fluent in violence, and the way that his family reacts to this, the way that everything unravels. Cronenberg doesn't feel the need to make it gross, but it is deeply unsettling the whole time. It's not quite body horror, but it's somewhere in between. And yeah, I just love this movie. I don't actually have too much substantial to say about it. Kirk, do you love A History of Violence?
This is the one I hadn't seen. I watched it because for this, and yeah, I liked it. It's very reserved for Cronenberg. That violence is there, and the gruesomeness, but it's more restrained than in a lot of other his movies. So I think it makes it more accessible. And I love a story. Since you already kind of spoiled it, I love that story where I love that kind of story where somebody's just trying to change and they just can't. Like that whole idea, like just what your like core nature is. And you can't run away from it. I like seeing that, and the way it's revealed and played out is really good. Viggo's plays that character really well, like that, just like kind of like Family Man, like the way he kind of flips the switch. Ed Harris is really good as the
Ed Harris is excellent.
Yeah, as the guy who's like that ghost that comes back from his past and is kind of haunting him. And then William Hurt Hurt got nominated for this, right? Just for that one scene.
He did. Yeah.
He did, yes.
And yeah, he's pretty good at like just that interaction. Again, that just the idea of that life and what that life is like and what family is like in that life, and just exploring that world.
This was supposed to be a comeback for Hurt, but he didn't do anything with it.
Yeah,
he's only in like 8 minutes of the movie. I mean,
Yeah, not that much.
Set him up.
He steals the movie with it. Yeah.
Everybody else on History of Violence.
This is a really good movie. It's one of the DC movies I like more. That being said, I don't think I'll ever truly be able to love it as much as I probably should, because it features one of the most overrated Oscar-nominated performances of all time. I think William Hurt is like actively mediocre, and it's like genuinely frustrating. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, he got nominated for an Oscar! He's so good!" It's like he's in 2 fucking minutes and he's fine. I dig Cronenberg for like the little I've seen. I like him more if I watched more of his stuff. I'd like this more if I watched more of his stuff, like in context. But like William Hurt really just like drags it down in my head.
I definitely enjoy the movie. I like when a director like Cronenberg, who usually makes very out there, phantasmagoric, auteurish stuff, decides to make a more straightforward movie, but bring that same level of craft, and kind of just show that, hey, yeah, I can quote unquote slum it, right? I can make a mainstream film, but also, kind of class up the joint a little bit. I think this is, a good example of that. I may have another example coming soon on my list, maybe even from the same director. Who knows?
Maybe because I came into it ready to watch a DC film, but knowing it was a variant, and I haven't seen many Cronenberg. The second I started watching the film, I was like, oh, this is a Cronenberg film. But also, I also wondered whether or not this somehow got misplaced as a Middle-earth film, because Howard Shore's score is 100% apparent throughout this film. And watching it, I felt like I was inhabitant sometimes, just because I'm so used to Lord of the Rings and the Lord of the Rings score with Howard Shore. But it was kind of like the longest 90-minute film I've seen in a long time, and that's not a bad thing. It's just you can tell Cronenberg was directing this film. It's really good. I agree with Spence. I saw Hurt's performance and was like, that's what he was nominated for. Like, it's not bad. He comes in and he chews it up, but I didn't know if it was worthy of an Oscar nomination. I love Viggo in mostly anything he does. So it is a good film, but again, a bit slow for a short movie for me. But very visceral, very, very deliberate. And I enjoyed Ed Harris a lot, and I enjoyed the mystery of trying to figure out whether or not he actually was Joey Cusack or not.
So Howard Shore actually he goes back with Cronenberg at least to the 70s with Videodrome. So he actually it was Lord of the Rings that pulled Shore from Cronenberg, and not the other way around. I also want to point out that Cronenberg claims that this is the first Hollywood movie to portray cunnilingus on screen, which I find hard to believe, but he says so.
Yeah, that's definitely
so,
not true.
Not true.
Yeah, I thought so, but yeah.
That was a good observation, Robbie. It is doesn't feel like a 90-minute movie, but in a good way. Like it's packed. There's a lot going on there. All right, Jake, what do you got next?
Next, I have the Manchurian Candidate, the 1962 version. Manchurian Candidate. I just saw this like fairly recently, but I think if you scale oldness and scariness, I think this is the oldest, scariest movie that I've seen, and people don't really talk about it in that context. I don't find Psycho, which came out 2 years earlier, to be nearly as unsettling as the Manchurian Candidate. The first time I watched this, it was a 2 a.m. movie, and when they get to the hypnosis scenes, where there's all the old women, and it doesn't spoon feed you what exactly is going on. Why is this all old women who are brainwashing these men? And I just found it kind of sickening, honestly, in a way that I really didn't expect, knowing what the Manchurian was through osmosis, through The Simpsons, and all these things. You hear the term Manchurian Candidate. I'm sure you guys probably know vaguely what that means. But when you see the original thing, yeah, I just found this a little more stomach churning than I would have expected. Yeah, what do you think of this one, Kirk? You there?
Sorry. I have not seen this one yet. I've had it on my list for a long time. I wanted to watch the show. Honestly, I couldn't find it for free. I'm prioritizing on my free movies right now.
Yes.
So I didn't get around to it yet, but I definitely want to see it. I mean, I love the cast. I love the idea of it, but just haven't watched it yet. Anybody else, have you guys seen the original Manchurian Candidate?
I've seen it. It's fantastic. This is a great choice. And yeah, this is a legit horror movie. Angela
Yes.
Lansbury's performance as the mother is like, I mean, again, this you would never believe that this is the woman from Murder She Wrote that you're watching, because she's like chilling. And yeah, this is another one of those movies where you just like say the cliche thing about like, oh, it's still so relevant, but like, it's true. Like this is one of those political paranoia movies from the 60s and 70s that still resonates. And it's an excellent movie. I highly recommend. I think this is one of the most like accessible classic films that I can think of. So like if you're not generally a classics person, I think this is still one where you can definitely enjoy it on surface level, I guess.
Haven't seen it.
I saw the remake. Haven't seen the original.
Oh, it's so much better than the remake.
It is, yeah.
I would assume so.
I think the remake's good. It's just that the remake somehow is less relevant than the original now.
All right. Okay, that's going to take us to everybody's top three for the night. And Scott, we're going to start with your number 83.
Okay, Rue, I think I might have one that you've seen here. A movie called The Shawshank Redemption.
I guess this is my 83. I don't know how this works.
Wow. All right. I think as Tony Heald would say, I think we all go to Vegas now. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess I'll talk about it. Nobody else has it higher. Okay. Cool. Shawshank. Yeah. I mean, what is there to say? Like, this is one of the most beloved movies of all time, and I get it. Like, I think what I really like about the movie is it doesn't really care so much about the did they do it or not of these people who are in prison, right? Like whether Andy Dufresne committed the murders or I mean, like, you know, he didn't. Like it's in there, but like they don't really focus on that. It's not as much about, oh, there's innocent people in prison. It's about there's people in prison and they're people, right? It really humanizes all of them, regardless of, you know, their background, what crime they have committed, blah, 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 and just kind of really highlights what a dehumanizing experience prison is for all of these people, and definitely makes you question the efficacy of it in the long run. And that's an issue that I, you know, have a lot of feelings about, certainly being in the profession that I'm in. But also, but I mean, the movie is, you know, ultimately sort of a triumph of the human spirit movie, right? About overcoming all of this adversity. And there's some great sort of like, you know, Chekhov's guns in the movie with like the poster and the rock hammer and all that stuff that, you know, when they pay off, it's, you know, it's like a slot machine when these things finally pay off in that last part of the movie. And it's, you know, that ending of just them approaching each other on the beach is like, it's so powerful because of how much they've been through together. It's great to see a movie like this again. Like, sure, there's something to be said for movies that like, you know, have this realistic portrayal of prison and, you know, leave you like sick at the end because of, you know, how dark they've portrayed it. But you know, I think it's also, you know, something to have a movie like this that actually does end on a high note, end on a more inspirational note. Obviously, the performances are really great, and you know, one of Morgan Freeman's best, and Tim Robbins is good too as Andy. Um, it's just a great movie. Like again, it universally beloved. I get it, very well made. It has Stephen King. You know, while it's not, I mean, it is a horror movie in some sense. While it's not like, you know, one of Stephen King's traditional horror stories, I think it has his character, you know, his attention to characters, which I've always appreciated from the books that I've read of his. And it's my mom's favorite movie, so shout out to my mom.
Shout out to your mom. It's also my 83. If this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I would not have said I have seen this movie. It's another one of those that like my family continuously watched, and at my age, I looked at it and was like, I want no parts of this film. And I just heard for years and years and years how great it is, and I finally watched it, and I was like, well, yes, I've been an idiot in not watching this. It jumped around my lists all over the place, and it really is because I've only really seen it once that it's this low. But when I finally did watch it, what really surprised me is what Scott said about how much this is a days in the life movie. You're just watching these people be people going through what they're going through in the prison, and with such sadness and such hope at the same time throughout the film. And yeah, just that ending of them getting together at the beach with going through absolutely everything. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and what I mean by pet peeves for me that hooks me into a movie that I hate is somebody getting framed or accused of something they didn't do. So that hooked me immediately because that really irks me. So being able to have that happy ending at the end was really satisfying for such great characters. And how much you just really, really hate Clancy Brown's character, and you feel how much you feel for is it Brooks that kills himself? Brooks, yeah. They just make you care.
My boy Brooke.
Yeah, they make you care or hate and care about every single person you meet in this film. And that was the biggest surprise for me going in, how much of it's not really a prison movie, it's a people movie. So
it's a jail movie.
They're different things.
Yeah, I've talked about this movie a lot on other top 100s, other shows, so I won't go too long on it. But yeah, it's amazing. I'm kind of disappointed stopping here at 83. It should be, you know, carried on longer. But yeah, like you said, it lives. I remember like when it came out, like it took me. It didn't take me as long as it took you, but it took me a while to get it because it just didn't. The idea of it just not that I knew the idea, but just what I thought the idea was didn't appeal to me. But I watched it. I was just blown away. And I remember watching this movie for the first time, and that ending and the reveal and seeing anything, that was one of the most satisfying movie experiences I've ever had. It just see the catharsis of finally everything working out was just I've never had a movie like that before. There's been times where like, okay, the good overcomes evil and the good guy wins out, but the way it played out so perfectly is just so brilliant.
They earned the happy ending. I think
exactly.
That's the way to say it.
It's so. I mean, the movie's almost 2.5 hours long, but I mean, obviously, I don't want to say it's an easy watch, but it's very rewatchable and it's very easy to get through just because it's so. Like I said, there's so much going on. It's almost like it's like a series of vignettes. You know, there's an overarching story, but you get all these little vignettes, and they're all so good and so interesting. And just the supporting cast are great. Like Clancy Brown, at one point, he's almost like a good guy, and he's on, he's on Andy's side. And then there's almost just like a heel turn, and now he's a bad guy, and he's doing all these awful things. So it's very realistic in that sense, where nobody's really like good or evil. It's just they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, it's again, I don't want to go into too long because it's been talked about a lot. But Jake and Spence, why do you guys hate good movies?
So, fun fact about this movie. I was talking about it with Mike Hanley the other night. This is the movie that disproves my theory that movies shown over and over on TV and parodied can still be surprising to me. This is the ultimate TNT movie, so I'm not shocked Rue has this. But I thought I knew everything about this. And then like the newer like Italian prisoner comes in, he's teaching him how to read, and then you figure out how he's connected to the murders. And that blew my mind because I came in like, oh, I know how this is going. I'm just watching this to say that I watched it, and I'm fucking shocked. This is one of the best movies of all time. I have no qualms with you guys having it. It's a fantastic pick. I have a harder time like. I can get into this like later in the show. I don't know why. I have a weird time loving perfect movies, like not having something to like talk about. Like this is just it and everything and amazing. Incredible pick. I just don't see myself having it.
I think everyone basically like summed up my feelings on this movie. So can I just like pick a nit with this movie? Can I like pick out something that like when it happens, I'm like, like little bit okay. When Andy Dufresne plays opera over the sound system, and all of the prisoners stand and like take off their hats and nobly are like, oh, this is high art. That is the moment in the movie that it reads a little false to me. It's like, okay, all these low lives are just like it just feels like this Oscar moment that they just.
You telling me low lives can't like opera? What's wrong with people who are primitive liking opera? They can like opera.
They're not low lives. You missed the point.
Exactly.
It's just no. They're not low lives, but to appreciate the music that Andy appreciates. Andy's clearly different than a lot of these prisoners, and I still think it's a fantastic movie. It's one of the best. It's one of the best novellas. One of the best books that I've ever read, even though it's technically a short story. So that's another thing I hold against it, where it's like, well, yeah, you adapted one of the best stories, so of course it's going to be one of the best movies.
I will add on to that really quickly. I love the short story. It took me forever to watch the film. However, one of my dogs is named Rita after the Rita Hayworth poster, not the actual actress, but the poster in the book.
And it's not on your list.
All right, Spence, that's going to take us. Yeah, that's 83 for those guys. So you're 83 now.
My 83 is a movie that everyone on this panel has definitely seen. One of the most popular films of all time. It is the German film Ist wieder da, also known as Look Who's Back. In short,
which way you were going with this?
This is basically German Borat, because the movie opens. Hitler has somehow time traveled to the modern day. He found like a weird like little wormhole, and boop, he's in 2015. And he's walking around some city in Germany, and they're like, "Hey, you're like a really good impersonator. Let's put you on the news." And eventually, over time, he gets his own talk show. And the movie is basically talking about how like these fascistic leaders can just come to power because they talk interestingly and have and add new ideas to the general talking space. But the reason this movie at least sells and works for me so well is like the Borat comparison is not just because it's a character piece. This actor, Oliver Masucci, literally went out, talked to German citizens in character like documentary style, and pitched them on why he should be a politician and run for office. They said, I like what you're saying. I will vote for you. German fucking citizens. The movie is masterful in the way that it satirizes and goes through modern political talking points. And again, how so many countries around the world are voting for and putting these fascistic leaders in power. And this was like prescient to all that. This was before Trump administration, before I think Germany now has a fascist leader, Colombia, Brazil, a bunch of countries are following this pattern. And the fact that it has predicted that so well, while also being like this really insightful commentary and creating, honestly, I also like the supporting characters in this. Like this movie just works on all cylinders. It could be higher if I rewatched it in the past couple of years, but as it is now, I think this is one of the most impressive achievements of film in the 21st century.
I actually have seen this. Yeah, like I mean, it's not top 100 movie for me. I mean, I'm glad you brought it up because we're going to talk about it. But yeah, you're right. Like to me, it also has like a network feel to it, where it's like just that idea of like media and the media's power, what it can do, and manipulate people, and get people to think a certain way. That's really cool. Other thing I love about it is they recreate shot for shot the downfall scene. The Hitler gets mad from the YouTube clips. They completely recreate that scene, and it's fantastic. So it's very self-aware. It's very satirical, but like Spence has a lot to say, and it's really the guy who plays Hitler is just creates a really interesting character, and kind of like reflects like his like buffoonery. And just like his like a lack of sense of self, where it just really makes he plays like it would almost like it would be if this really did happen. So it's really well done. I'm assuming nobody else has seen this, but wishful thinking.
Never even heard of it.
There's a Mr. Show sketch. Do you guys watch? Do you guys know about Mr. Show? Everyone should check out Mr. Show with Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, where they as reparations they make clones of Hitler to be like slaves to the Jewish descendants. And there's just like this little story about like these two Hitlers who've like lost their purpose, and it's not the same at all, but yeah, I added this one to my list.
Not the same at all, but yeah, it is a very interesting movie. It's definitely worth checking out. And Jake, that's going to take us to your number 83.
Ooh. Okay, for number 83, so Kirk, you have like a in your letterbox, you have like this key that like explains all your ratings, right? So at like 5 stars, you have one of the all-time greats. Makes sense. At 5.5, a great movie, one of my favorites. Let me just skip down to 3 stars, above average, worth watching. Great, that makes sense. 2.5 stars, average for the most part, inoffensive, not a complete waste of time. 2 stars, not a good movie, but you probably won't hate yourself later. Let me just skip down to 1 stars, just the worst. We can still be friends if you like this movie, but it's going to be rocky, right? So
Let's
still be friends if it's a 1-star movie. At 0.5 star, which is the movie that I chose.
Oh no!
I take this movie's existence as a personal insult. Kirk rated The Devil's Rejects 0.5 star. So it is implied, based on this rating system, that Kirk and I can no longer be friends. So this is actually very sad. So this is a movie that I included on my list, partly because I love to defend it. There's a certain type of director who loves the monster more than they love the boring protagonist who is trying to survive the monster's wrath. The obvious examples are Tim Burton with something like Edward Scissorhands, or Guillermo del Toro with something like Hellboy or The Shape of Water. Now, I think the thing that these guys end up falling back on when they make their monster as protagonist movie is that they tend to soften the monster. They tend to make them cuddly, eliminate the thing that actually makes them a monster. And with the Devil's Rejects, Rob Zombie does no such thing. The Devil's Rejects, technically a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses, which is a slasher movie meets Dark Ride, almost a remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or a remix. In The Devil's Rejects, these characters these characters are the protagonists. They're basically on a road trip. And I think the thing that's so interesting about this is that anyone who is steeped in the horror genre will understand that the horror characters such as Jason or Freddy or Chucky or Michael, these are really the protagonists of their franchise at some point. Or Psycho, even Psycho 2. Norman Bates is the main character. When they tried to eliminate Michael Myers from the Halloween franchise, they had to put his name in it happened with Friday the 13th. Jason Lives, when they tried to eliminate Jason from these. Horror fans gravitate towards these characters, and it's not easy to see why. These characters brutalize and pillage, and there's very little redeeming qualities about these characters. You see it with Wolf Creek 2. The protagonist is the villain. There are all these countless examples. Damien, The Omen 2, like the villain ends up becoming the protagonist. And to me, The Devil's Rejects is an investigation of why that is. Why do we connect to these characters? And I think that the thing that turns so many people off, the brutality and cruelty that these characters inflict on any poor innocent who comes into contact with them. I think the fact that Rob Zombie insists on including that is actually what makes this movie so damn interesting, because it forces you to find the essence of why do we connect with these guys? It's an interesting thing. And Kirk, I really want to hear your thoughts on this, as I'm guessing a non-horror fan who's just like, I just hate these characters, like fuck them, like I hope they die.
No, I'm actually a big horror fan. I like a lot of different types of horror movies, and I think everybody, it's subjective where your line is. In general, my line is when it goes from, like, I don't know if you call it like a hyper realism, where the horror is like actual real life horror, where the horror is stuff that happens to people in real life, and it's not a film, it's a recreation of actual events that have happened and could happen and do happen. That's where, at that point, like, again, I'm talking in generalities, that's where it's no longer interesting or entertaining to me, that's where I tap out. Now, if it's a really well-made movie like Texas Chainsaw, then I can at the very least appreciate the artistic side of it, even if I don't necessarily enjoy the movie or the subject matter. This ain't Texas Chainsaw. This is basically like a freshman year film student saw Texas Chainsaw. Like, go do that. Rob Zombie, I'll start with that. On a technical level, Rob Zombie is a terrible director. Like, this movie just looks like crap, and it's poorly shot. It's not a good looking movie at all. Some of the characters and the dialogue are awful. Like the scene where they're arguing over the chicken. It just seems like that, just really stupid, like bad writing. And then above all that, the fact that he's asking us to identify, like, it's not just, I think there's a difference between making the monster, the killer, whatever, the focus, and making the protagonist. Like, the way this movie is shot, the way it's the way they use music, the way it's framed, like, we're to look at them as the good guys. And like, they are just like, that's the way the movie's presented. You can't argue with that. That's the way the movie's set up. Like, it's presented that these are the good guys. That you see them like torture and murder and rape, and it's like, yeah, like look, they're out getting ice cream. They're a family. Like we care about them. Like they're set up as the good guys. I just can't take that. Like if a
Good
director
guys is too strong.
if the director likes, if like you talked about, director falling in love with loving the monster. Like there's a difference between loving a vampire, loving Dracula, loving Frankenstein, loving the Wolfman, and loving Charles Manson or Jeffrey Dahmer and glorifying that person. Now, there's one or two things that could like change that, but it's just too. Like I said, it's being asked to identify with these characters and look at them. Like I said, the movie, when you watch the movie, the positions they're in, the way they're shot, the way the music plays, everything, like they're the good guys in the movie. And the guy who's trying to stop them from like doing any more further murdering or raping is the bad guy, presented you as the bad guy. Like the movie doesn't want to see him succeed. And
I disagree with this.
That kind of makes me sick. So like, yeah, I could not get on board with this movie at all. Like it is just.
But allow me to respond for a second here, because if you watch Halloween, which started this slasher genre, the movie opens from Michael's POV. It's not asking you to identify with Michael Myers. The movie understands.
There's a difference between see the point of view and actually like making them the protagonist. Michael's not the protagonist, even though he's the focus. He's not the protagonist of that movie.
He's often the camera. He's often the POV character. Like,
oh yeah, well yeah, but that's different from the way they're shot here. Like that scene in the car where like they're eating ice cream, and like
I think you're always cheering for the family that is being tormented. I don't think that Zombie intended for you to be rooting on these.
Well, that's my. I'm not sure either. Either he was just trying to be offensive, or he really does like side with those characters. I think he's screwed up enough MF that he would.
I think it's fair to hate this movie, Kirk.
But,
I think it's perfectly fair.
You and I have talked about. I'll give everybody else a chance. So we've gone on about a lot. Anybody else on Devil's Rejects?
Rob Zombie, Psychotic.
I leave these movies to Ethan.
Yeah, never seen it.
All right, then we will move on from that, and we will go on to Scott's number 82.
I'm not sure it's going to get much better from Kirk's perspective, but we'll lighten it up with one of the funniest movies ever made, The Big Lebowski. Yeah, this movie probably actually should be higher on my list. I've watched it twice very recently, and obviously I'd made my list at that point, so couldn't really change anything. But if I was to remake it, it would probably be higher. This is one of the top 5 movies that makes me laugh the absolute hardest. I think I talked about this before, but first time I watched it was on a plane. And, I figured, because I'm not someone who generally will just like belly laugh at movies, and especially not when I'm in a particular environment where I need to control my laughter like a plane. This movie, I was like laughing uncontrollably. I thought they were going to like throw me out of the plane because I was probably disturbing people with my reaction to the movie. But yeah, I think it's just like escalating comedy. Like it just like a scene starts with something funny, and then it just gets funnier as the scene goes on, as the movie goes on. And it's definitely a like vibes heavy movie. Like there is a plot, of course, but it's just like so unimportant, honestly. Like the actual crime thing that's going on, it becomes so convoluted by the end that like you don't really care, but you're still having a great time because you're hanging out with these dudes. And Jeff Bridges, obviously we talked about Rooster Cogburn earlier. Like that Rooster Cogburn, and honestly every performance that he's done since Big Lebowski is inspired by the dude. And it's just such an iconic character. So many, hilarious lines. And then the whole supporting cast. I mean, John Goodman playing one of the stupidest like characters you will ever see in a movie. Like, and I mean, again, in the most hilarious way, like his whole plot when they're doing the drop off, like the Uzi going off and blowing out the back of the tire of the car, making it run off the road. The whole scene with the kid Larry, where he's just like accosts the kid, "You see what happens, Larry," and beats up the guy's car. It's just so funny. It's so strange. Like again, some of the stuff I don't know where they came up with it, but I think for me, like this movie is just a great hangout movie. Again, absolutely hilarious from beginning to end. Arguably gets funnier as it goes along, um, and probably my favorite Coen's movie. Like it's a cult movie to some extent, but I just like that absurd the humor is just like the right level of absurd to where it's just like again a direct hit for me. So probably should be higher. I absolutely love this movie.
I just rewatched this again earlier this year because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I remember watching it when it came out, and I was like, oh, "Okay, that was a movie. It was all right." And then as years passed, I remember the first time someone told me Big Lebowski was their favorite movie, and I was just like, "What?" Like I was just flabbergasted by that. And then as time went on, like just this, culture built up around this movie, and I was just blown away by it. And I never went back to it until, like I said, this year. So I rewatched it, and I liked it better. But I'm never going to get the hype for it. I'm just never going to. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It's not terrible. There's nothing like super wrong with it. But the hype and just the whole identity around it is insane to me. It's got good stuff. Like Jeff Bridges is good and John Goodman's good. I think it's got a lot of weaknesses, like the whole Sam Elliott framing device is just dumb and weird and uncomfortable. And that I always complain about Coen Brothers movies, how they just kind of end. But this is one movie like I wish would just end, because when Sam Elliott comes on the screen and just tells me everything that happened, it just kills the movie for me. And like Steve Buscemi's character is just kind of pointless and just there.
Oh, come on.
And
Donnie.
like just a lot of the dialogue just gets kind of repetitive. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, it's a terrible movie and you're stupid for liking it," but I can't wrap my head around the hype. Everybody else on Big Lebowski?
My first thought on Big Lebowski is always justice for Donnie. They do him so dirty in this film.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous how dirty. I watched it for the first time.
That's the whole joke.
It is. It's a whole joke, and I like it. But it's just I watched this for the first time in the lens of having to debate Koho about why Oh Brother is a better film than The Big Lebowski. So I watched it in the lens of trying to find things to crap on it on. So I have to watch it again without that lens. I just do say I was annoyed. Like, why? The best character in the film, in my eyes, is just killed off. And he's not even in the film that much, but you like him so much because John Goodman does such a great job of being the hugest asshole on earth. But Jeff Bridges as the dude, that's him. It's fun. It's a weird ass movie. I was kind of wondering where the hell the crime plot went. And then it was like, okay, Sam Elliott's in here for something. I enjoyed it, but I am also not as big on everybody else on it. But I did enjoy it.
Continuing the trend of me thinking Coen films are overrated, this doesn't work whatsoever. Not that it's bad, it just doesn't work for me because like nothing in this film is made for me. It's really not funny. The performances are fine. I like Julianne Moore a lot. That's about it. I probably will not watch this again in like 20 years, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, I think there's a almost like James Bondian level of like male fantasy to this movie, where it's like, yeah, who doesn't want to like be like, I don't know, sitting in their shitty like LA apartment with a bathrobe and sunglasses, drinking their like White Russians and just living this carefree bowler man.
Your entire life
like,
revolves around a bowling tournament.
Yeah. It seems so relaxing in a way. There's something so chill about this movie that he's a loser, but he's like a loser that it's like, yeah, I could be that loser, you know? Like, there's a part of it that there's a part of like what I call it in sitcoms. Some sitcoms that I hate, I call them like lifestyle porn, and there's an element of that to the dude. I disagree with the Sam Elliott argument. I think it just adds texture to a movie just already overflowing with texture, and that's part of what I love. I have a movie coming up that's so close to The Big Lebowski, so we'll get to that.
All right, Spence, what is your number 82?
My 82, I actually wouldn't be surprised if this gets yiked. It is Amelie. No. Wow. So, I really like French films. It got me interested in the French language, which I got a D in college. It's just like a really lovely, like light romantic film. One of my favorite like pieces of like general like cultural trivia is there's a psychosis or like a diagnosis about how like depressing it is. People like go to France, they realize it's not this idyllic wonderland they see in movies and photographs and stuff. And like for me, this is it. I think this just captures like France in such a wonderful like tint, and the director Jean-Pierre Jeunet he photographs it so incredibly. And I love Amelie as a protagonist. I have like a weird issue with overly quirky characters. I think she writes that line perfectly. Of like, yeah, she has her thing of like, every day I imagine how many orgasms there are in the city, and she's like 22, whatever her fucking number is, and then going on to have like this really like wonderful subplot about finding photographs and setting up her coworker with like a random person who comes in. It's just like this really, it gives me hope for the world in a weird way. On top of that, I just think Audrey Tattoo just creates like one of like the most iconic singular characters I've ever seen. Like you can never forget her face. The point that like it was parodied by Discount Friedberg and Seltzer, and like that was the face of like, oh, you know this. Like it's huge and it's wonderful and light. And if you don't like it, I think there's something wrong with you. So Kirk, what do you think?
This is another one. I watched this for the first time a couple years ago, and having heard and witnessed all the hype around it, and it just I didn't dislike the movie, but it just didn't live up to it for me. I think the main thing is like what you said, like she's so like overly quirky, like just to the point where it's like she doesn't even feel like a real person, and just like all those like setups, just it I don't know. It's almost too fanciful for me to like really grasp. Like none of it feels real. It's just like cotton candy. Again, I don't think it was a terrible movie, but it's not one like I did not get on board the hype train for this one either. Like I said, the supporting cast is okay, but again, it's like the situations are so like just generic rom-com-y maybe is the way to say it, or not. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like there's not a lot of weight to it. I guess I wasn't invested. Everybody else at Amelie.
I think I would probably really like it, but I've yet to see it.
I think you would like it, Scott.
I've only seen bits and pieces, but I love Alien Resurrection. Nah, it's just okay. But Alien Resurrection, underrated.
You took my joke. You took my joke. I was gonna say I haven't seen it, but Spence, has Amelie taken any influence from the Jean-Pierre Jeunet classic Alien Resurrection?
I know where you live. I'll fight you.
You had a better.
You've been here. Now, whether or not my dog will let you win, that's another story.
Everybody go on this one?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Sorry, I lost track there. Rue, give us your 82.
All right. So this sequence of movies for me basically sums up my life in movies and my list. I have seen a lot of classics, amazing, perfect films, but my tastes and my love of movies is more around fun and rewatchability and how much I enjoy the film. So yes, this is above Shawshank Redemption. We're gonna go over from the TNT classics and go to the TBS classics. We're going to 2000. We're going to 2003's Italian Job.
All right.
I love ensemble films. I love ensemble films where you love every single character in the movie that you see. And I also love good action movies that you find some humor in. And Italian Job to me is the amalgamation of that. I just had a ball of a time when I watched this film for the first time, and I will rewatch it again and again and again. Donald Sutherland, for as little as he's in it, is one of the most charming men ever. I'm not the hugest Mark Wahlberg fan, but I like what he does here. When he just gets to, he's just him in every movie, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's really, really not. It falls in the good for me here, but for me, what makes this movie is one, Edward Norton knows how to be a douchebag, and as much as he's hamming it up in this film, I think it fits for the vibe and how much everybody just wants to have fun. But it's really Charlize Theron is there, but it's really the trio of Seth Green, Jason Statham, and Mos Def. The three of them to me in this film is just every scene they're in, I laugh my ass off. When Mos Def is doing the tech stuff and he finds out there's dogs and he's like, I had a bad experience. And like, what happened to I had a bad experience? I laugh my ass off every time. The whole Napster bit with Seth Green and him making fun of Jason Statham as Handsome Rob. It's all fluff. It's not the greatest of good films, but it's just a sit back and enjoy the fun you're about to have with this film. And it made everybody want a Mini Cooper. And who doesn't want a Mini Cooper? I love this film to death, unapologetically. I actually don't want a Mini Cooper either. But I do love this film unapologetically. It's one of my favorite films to just go back and watch again and again and again.
I was going to say this is definitely my top 100 Mini Cooper commercials. It's a great one. But no, I rewatched this for the show for the first time in a long time, and yeah, it's a solid heist movie. I mean, everybody has a really, it's just one where you have each character has their thing, their personality trait, their job, and everybody fits well. The supporting cast is strong. Ed Norton's really good as a villain. I just like how swarmy he is. My favorite little touch of this movie is how when they're first on the heist, they're all together. Ed Norton's there, they're all talking about everything they want, and they go to Ed Norton's house later once he stole all the money for himself, and he's bought everything that they said. Like, he's so unoriginal. I just love that little character trait, that just little thing they threw in there. It speaks so much to the character, and you don't get that a lot with villains for these. A lot of villains in these movies are very generic, and it gives his character such a cool little layer. And the other thing I like about this movie is he kills Donald Sutherland, he kills Charlize Theron's dad, and the immediate response isn't we're going to kill him. It's like we're going to take everything he has, and I just love that because most movies okay, he killed somebody, we got to kill him, and it's realistic because not everybody's a killer. Not everybody's going to, even if you lost somebody, you're not going to go out and do murder. You're going to do what you do. You're going to get your revenge the way you can, and I like that aspect of this movie. It's a basic cable movie. It's a surprise in the top 100. I mean, I say it's a surprise, but again, it's not. It's completely inoffensive. Everybody else, I tell you, Joe.
I really respect this because it's just a fun movie, and if it hits you right, a fun movie can just be one of the best movies, and that happens sometimes. I do think behind the scenes, there was something really contentious going on with Ed Norton wanting to quit, and if you read
any movie Edward Norton is in though.
Yeah, if you watch the movie, it's just perfectly fun and fluffy and light and enjoyable, and then you read the behind the scenes and it's oh yeah, they all hated each other. It's what? I really like this.
We definitely need more Mos Def Yasin Bey performances. I need him back in
for sure. Yeah, why isn't Mos Def the biggest movie star? Do
he's thinking of rapping, I guess. Still not much. Not enough of that either.
Scott, I haven't seen this one.
Oh, did we lose Scott?
I haven't seen this one in a long time. Sorry.
He goes by Yasin Bey now.
Yes, he does.
I'm convinced the only movies that me. Sorry, go ahead.
Good. I haven't seen this one in a long time, but I had a lot of fun with it back in the day. I don't think it has the effortlessness maybe of the Soderbergh heist movies, so that's why I don't come back to it as often. But as a sort of slicker, more action-driven version, I guess, of those movies, it's like a James Bondy heist movie in a way. I have a good time with it, but it's been a while. I'm sure I would still enjoy it though.
I'm pretty convinced the only movies that me and Rube both seen are geek films. Outside of that, there's no crossover. And Zola. Great fucking movie. Great fucking movie.
All right, Jake, give us your 82.
My 82 is A Cure for Wellness, the Gore Verbinski movie.
Oh yeah.
Gore Verbinski has two types of movies. He's got his dry movies, which is Rango, the Lone Ranger, the Mexican, and he's got his wet ones, baby, and this is a wet one. With the Pirates of the Caribbean and Ring. Yeah, Gore Verbinski loves a wet flick, and I can't get enough of them personally. This movie made Dane DeHaan like make sense for me all of a sudden. I basically think of this as like, well, I think of this as like a Vincent Price like castle horror movie, but it's got all of the if you pay attention to Gore Verbinski, the signature like bleeding heart lefty anti-capitalist like blood running through its veins. And this thing just explodes in the third act into like people with green skeleton faces and like ancient bloodlines and incest and and I think if you were to actually take the time to pick it apart, it's a very astute critique of the horrors of capitalism. So Kirk, do you see this one?
I watched this because for the show, and I'd been wanting to see it for a while. So I was excited to watch it, and I wanted to like it a lot more than I did. I didn't hate it, but I felt like because I'd heard so much about it, how it had all these like classic horror ideas, and it was like Lovecrafty and everything. And I was looking for just more of that. Like I could see that the tone it was going for, but it never got there for me. Maybe on rewatch I'd get it, but it's so long. It's such a long movie.
It is very long.
Yeah, I think I don't think this movie needs to be as long as it is. But yeah, it does have like that kind of like gothic, European old world horror to it, and the story is interesting. I just again, like I said, I feel like I was set up for something else. I set up for a little more than what I got. And there's a scene in this movie at the beginning where Dane DeHaan's mother says to him, she's like, "You don't look well." And I was like, "Yeah, he's Dane DeHaan. Of course he doesn't look well." But so yeah, I guess he was kind of perfectly cast for something like this, where somebody's trying.
He looks
to
like a lizard.
Yeah, but
he looks like a puppy that's gonna bite you.
It's definitely not his worst performance. Anybody else seen Cure for Wellness?
I was gonna say that you lost me at incest, and then I remembered you had already lost me at Dane DeHaan.
So I've been curious about this movie ever since it came out because the setup does sound interesting. I think Mia Goth is fairly underrated. I like her and a lot of other stuff. But I think the running time has been a little bit daunting for me, but I'm going to do it. I added it to my watch list. If I ever stop getting trivia matches someday, I will sit down and put in 2.5 hours on this.
So I think this was co-financed by like the German government or something. So this is a weirdly expensive, weird ass movie, which is another reason that it made my list. So if you want to see a gorgeous, weird movie, that's what this is.
Nah.
All right, Scott, we're gonna wrap it up here. Get everybody's top pick for the night. What is your 81?
My 81 is my favorite movie from my favorite ongoing franchise. This is Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. Yeah, I mean, I like every single movie in this franchise to some degree. Even the second one, it's fine. I mean, it's definitely the worst, but yeah, like between Fallout and Rogue Nation, like it's a coin toss. But I think I enjoy this one more. I think it has just a little bit more consistency, a little bit more momentum that it maintains throughout the entire movie. I also think it balances really well, like, because since 3, this has really become like an action based. I mean, I guess really since 2. Only the first one was really the spy movie, the De Palma one. But this movie has all of the action stuff that you've come to love about the Mission Impossible movies. I mean, the set pieces are unbelievable in this movie. The opera house scene that borrows from, Hitchcock's Man Who Knew Too Much and everything is just brilliantly staged. And then the whole underwater, diving, like where he's trying to get the thing out of the other thing. I don't know how to describe it better than that. But so Simon Pegg can pass through the security thing or whatever without, getting tripped up. Or is it Simon Pegg or is it Jeremy Renner? I can't remember. But anyway, the movie's amazing. And that the set pieces are fantastic. But they're still grounded, right? Like it's not like Fast and the Furious where they've just completely jumped the shark and they're going to space in a freaking convertible. And it's just complete stupidity. Like they're still grounded. Any reason you know that they're grounded is because that's actually Tom Cruise doing all of the stuff in this movie. And I don't know. I think for me at least, it adds an extra layer of danger when you know that this is the real guy who's out there doing this. But then also, in addition to the action sequences, the last part of the movie with in London with the prime minister and all of the trickery that's going on there feels more like the spy type stuff that Mission Impossible was in the TV series, that was in the De Palma film, that like maybe is actually more true to the Mission Impossible IP, whatever that is at this point, than the what it has become. Plus Tom Cruise, I mean, he's my favorite actor. I'm not going to hide it. He's so good in all types of movies, but as an action star, his charisma is unmatched. And as good as he is, the best character in the movie is the one who's introduced in this movie, and that's Ilsa Faust. Absolutely my favorite supporting character in the franchise. Like Rebecca Ferguson's introduction before she was a known name at all. Her introduction in this movie is like you just immediately attention grabbing, and remains that way through the whole movie. She's such a great like steely companion for Ethan, and I like that they don't try to like have any sort of romantic like thing between them. It's just kind of a professional appreciation. So the movie's fantastic. Mission Impossible is fantastic. You all know this.
The ones I've seen at least kind of blend together in my head. This one is the one with, you said the Opera House. Is this the one with the motorcycle chase?
Which motorcycle case?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I think you're probably
is it the one
thinking
he
of Fallout
flips
for
the motorcycle
chase.
and is that this one?
I think that's Fallout.
That's also in 2 and in Fallout.
This is the one with the record store?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I think I'm wrapping my head over which one this is. I like this one. I agree with you. The franchise as a whole, I think like this has so much more heart and so much more dedication and so much more. It's just so much more genuine than like the Fast and the Furious. Like there's something. There's an idea behind these movies.
I care about the family in these movies way more than the movies where they're saying family every 2 sentences.
Yeah. And just want to talk about Simon Pegg. Like he's really good in this one, and he's so amazing because Benji, that character should suck. Like Benji should be a character every time he comes on screen, you should be rolling your eyes. Like he should just be like that obnoxious comic relief that you can't wait to leave so something cool happens. But Simon Pegg takes that character and just creates something so great with it and so real, and somebody you root for, somebody you care about, somebody who's funny, and he is just such a unique talent in his ability to do that. He does it in so many movies, just elevates it. He's so he's good in all of them, but I remember certain scenes from this movie, at least I think I do, where his back and forth with Ethan Hunt is always really great. So this is a solid entry in the series. Everybody else on Rogue Nation.
Yeah, this isn't the best Mission Impossible film. You could say it's the 4th best. It's good. I think it's good. I think there's other ones that do everything else better. 3, 1, 6, 5, 4, 2. Anyways,
those are all numbers, yes.
Yeah. That was fast. I'm surprised.
I have my ranking literally pulled up. I actually had to be sure. Before I start being a dickhead, I need to be a correct dickhead. I guess I think this being like the one on your list is strange. Not even anything lower than it, because I think they hit pretty similar beats. I think is a lot of them or none of them. So it's just like a interesting move.
I agree with Spence in the fact that this is for me the 4th in the franchise, but I don't agree in the same sense because I'm saying it's the 4th best out of all movies that are absolutely amazing. Like Spencer, I think that saying it's the fourth best is saying it's better than 95% of action films that are out. I am more on Scott. I am more on Scott with this. I adore the majority of this franchise, while 2 is 2. And I am 100% with Scott on this one. Ilsa Faust is amazing. It's close to a 5 out of 5. This is a 5 out of 5 action franchise to me. And it's, again, being fourth is not a knock for me. It's just all of these films are just really, really so solidly good. For me, it's the funny thing for me is I really like Solomon Lane, and I can't tell if it's because I like the character so much, or I think Sean Harris's voice is the best thing ever. And his voice is so menacing that it makes him a better villain. But Scott, this is an amazing choice. I love this film to death. I love all these films to death. So again, then there's 2.
Yeah, I actually agree with Scott. I think this is the best in the franchise. I think it's the most intimate of the franchise. The atmosphere, it feels like we're getting closer to Ethan Hunt and his team in this one. I also have to thank this movie for introducing us to Rose the Hat. We stand a legend. Rose, we tip our hat.
All right. Spitz, what is your number 81?
I'm going to make it Mission Impossible 3 so we don't talk about how that's the fucking most personal one when that has the best villain and a fucking wife and it's great. Back to the Coens for a second.
Really?
That's the show this week. 81 is Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh, 1 second.
This is your 81. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just need to. I think I have Inside Llewyn Davis. Yeah, so I'm gonna go yikes for future.
Not the Coens week anymore.
I think I do. 1 minute. Yeah, I do.
Okay,
this. Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're taking out.
All right. Okay. Spence doesn't care what Rue has to say, but Rue, what is your 81? The rest of us will pay attention.
I wonder whether or not I'm gonna get a yikes on this one. It can go either way. We'll see. My 81 is Parasite.
Yikes.
There we go.
Okay. So Jake, take us home. You're 81.
Yeah. My 81 is The Long Goodbye, the Robert Altman film. No yikes. Okay. Yeah. This is the one that I brought up that I think The Big Lebowski really kind of owes everything to this movie in a way where they're updating the Philip Marlowe character to more of this schlubby, idiosyncratic character that you just get to live with. Oddly enough, I think it also the cat subplot in this, where the cat is going missing, the Coens owe that from Inside Llewyn Davis. That is a subplot that they also borrow from this movie. So the Coens are kind of picked at this movie from the movies that we've actually just mentioned. Yeah, I said that a fitting title to the end of this show. Someone commented that. That's kind of mean. Yeah, I compared this movie to like a it's like a classic car in that it aged so well that I think that it actually got better with time. Where an Oldsmobile in 1973 might have just looked like what a Toyota Corolla looks like to us today. And now this movie, it suddenly looks like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or the one with Joaquin Phoenix where he's a detective.
Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice, yes, where they're trying to capture that now. Well, this movie is so focused on all of those little details, all about how his apartment works, how his coffee machine works, the neighborhood, all of these small little details, that it plays like that. It plays like it's a nostalgic movie, even though it it's set in the time that it's set in. And yeah, I just think this is one of the coolest movies of all time. So Kirk, you're a fan of this one, right?
Yeah. I'm the more I watch, the more I fall in love with 70s Elliot Gould. It kind of bums me out that like younger people are only going to know him as like the dad from Friends and TV, TV rules like that. But he was so cool in the 70s and like just had like he plays like this schlubby detective so well. And I just love like that character type and that like I always talk about how I love like scuzzy 70s New York. Well, this like scuzzy 70s LA. And it's so like I like, you're right, it's like Big Lebowski, but I like this one better because it's like the just like Big Lebowski, the mystery doesn't really matter. It's just an excuse for him to go like scene to scene and character to character and interact with all these different people and do all this stuff. And it's just got such a great vibe to it. I love that. And Sterling Hayden, I think, is a standout in this. I love him in this so much. He's so good. It's just kind of like that, like drunken, like lost, like I didn't know, can't remember if he's like writer or director, but whatever he was. I just love like the feel. It has almost like an otherworldly feel. Like I love how his apartment's set up. It's like up on that like building with like those weird porches around. He's got the neighbors like across a bridge or something. It just doesn't look real. It doesn't feel real. But
it's kind of a male fantasy.
Yeah.
Weird way.
So yeah, no, I really like this movie. I like this. It's a really solid pick. Anybody else in the big goodbye?
Haven't seen it.
The long goodbye.
A long goodbye. Sorry.
So fun little hint for everyone who I'm going to play in Warzone in the future and I'll lose against. I've never seen an Altman film, so.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
it's a lot of studying for the person who is going to pick that against you. But yeah, I haven't seen this, unfortunately. However, I've been wanting to see it. It has been compared to a lot of movies I like The Big Lebowski, like Inherent Vice, like Under the Silver Lake, which is another one I really like. So I think I would probably be really into it. So yeah, I'll add it to my watch list now, right next to Cure for Wellness. But yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode, guys. You did a lot better this time. We stumbled out of the gate last week. We're improving. I think we're seeing some a little bit of hope. I was down all this week. I was kind of questioning myself, but I think we're turning the corner here early, which is a good thing. I'll give grades. Well, I'll tell you who won. Your winner this week is going to be Scott Harvey.
Fuck.
What?
Even though we didn't get to talk about them, Scott's bottom three were strongest three movies that got
it
mentioned
happened.
Tonight. Philadelphia Story is great. Shawshank. Say Anything really hurt you, but you didn't have enough on the list to take you down. I mean, enough to, like I said, get you out of the top spot. You had a really lot of strong movies there. Number 2, second place. Adelaide Spence.
Let's go.
Yes. Lobster, Babadook, Tootsie, Oh Brother, Inside Llewyn Davis, Look Who's Back. A lot of solid movies there. You didn't get as high as Scott did with some of his, but like very consistent. Nothing on this list that I hate. Nothing I don't want to see. So yeah, solid list. Good job there. Third place, Amaru.
Hey,
definite improvement. I mean, you had Shawshank on here. You got some really good picks. Parasite. Again, inoffensive is how I'm describing your list. Completely inoffensive. There's nothing here this week that I would have kill you over, but there's just it's middle of the road. Training Day is great. John Wick's good, but yeah, third place. Scott and Spence were strong. Last place, Jake. You made me watch Devil's Rejects. You were going to need 9 bangers to dig yourself out of that hole. Instead, you gave me Team America World Police. So you did not have a chance this week, buddy. So I apologize for that. Balanced you out there with your first place win last week. But that's it for this time. Join us next week. We are going to get into everybody's 70s. See, we're at episode number 3. Hopefully, it only gets better from here. They've improved so far, like I said. And we did this in under 3 hours, so not too bad. But thanks for watching, everybody. Join us next week, same time. For Scott, for Jake, for Spence, for Rue, for Kobe behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
intimidate me. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Drunk and angry. Come on, break the lousy cup. Ow! I hurt my arm.
And I'd expect everybody to do everything.
I'm going there soon, you know.
Is that so? Where are you going?
Uruguay.
Well, you go Uruguay and I'll go mine.